And welcome back to Insemination, the podcast that is all things donor conceived. My name is Laura High. That is right. I am your chaotic sperm donor baby of the podcast world. And we are back with part 2 of Donor Conceived Hangout with both Alex and Rachel. I am so excited to get to part 2. This was such a fun episode to record and film. And again, the vibe of this is I want all donor conceived people who are listening to this, and if you're not donor conceived, you still get to join in on this. But especially if you're donor conceived, I really want you to imagine that this episode was filmed with all of us in the room together, including you. That was the vibe that I was feeling from this. This was the energy that I was feeling, and I really just hope that you can feel that too. Now, before we get to the episode, a little bit of housekeeping. Remember that I am a stand-up comic, and if you want to see me perform stand-up, check out my Instagram. I always post my shows there. Sometimes I forget, and I'm realizing as I'm doing this intro, I haven't actually updated. So give me a moment, and I'll update my show list. But my show list is also on my website, www.laurahighfive.com. The 5 is spelled out. I'm already starting to book tour dates for next year, so I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the chance to meet all of you. But I don't want to waste any more of your time. Do the whole liking, reviewing, subscribing thing onto the podcast. Y'all know what to do. And let's get to the episode.
So we're in the car, and I think this is going to be a lighthearted conversation. I don't think I anticipated that we were going to open up this can of worms. But I say to my mom, I was like, hey, Mom, you were in your mid-40s when you had me. Did you have to use fertility drugs? And I had never asked her this before, I guess, which is kind of wild because I was very precocious. My parents used to call me a smart Alec, and I would say, no, I'm a smart Alex. And I didn't even.
Cute. That is really cute.
Yeah.
I'm a smart Alex.
Yeah, which is the word. I was such a little chick.
Yes.
I was just I was very precocious.
Okay, that should be the merch.
I'm a smart Alex.
I'm not a smart Alec. I'm a smart Alex.
That's my personal brand.
That is your brand.
Unfortunately for everyone around me, that is my brand.
But that's your production. But that's your production company, Smart Alex.
Smart Alex.
Yeah.
So we're in the car. I ask her that, and she's like, she kind of was doing the thing where you're trying to pay attention to the road, but also kind of look over. And she's like, yes, of course I did. And I was like, okay. And then she goes, I will never forget this, verbatim. She goes, any other questions? And I said, I don't know. Should there be? And she pulls the car over because she's about to do car confessional. And for those of you who are not watching this on the video feed, I'm going to describe what's going on. Laura and Rachel are huddled together, bracing for impact as if I'm about to drive the car that we are in off the cliff.
Go!
And so I said, I don't know, should there be? She pulls the car over and
pulls the car over,
cuts the engine and goes, we've been meaning to tell you this for a while, but you're an egg donor, baby. And I just said, I knew it. And okay, so drink to being called a baby at 18.
Yeah. Nastrovia.
Yeah, drink to that.
Kind of a drip.
And I it felt like I had been holding my breath subconsciously for years, and I felt color come back to my face, and I exhaled, and I was like, oh my God, because my thought is that I'm not keeping you were keeping a secret. It wasn't me.
Fuck you guys!
It wasn't me keeping a
meme.
It's a Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, we all thought we were all trying to protect each other
Yeah.
by keeping secrets from each other, which is so insidious.
Which is also, I feel so poignant to what Kerry Washington has recently said in her book,
Yeah.
where she was the fact that this secret was weighing on our family.
Yeah.
And once we let go of the secret,
Just
we could finally all unconditionally love each other.
Yes. Yeah. And it was literally such, the first thing I said was, I knew it.
Yeah.
And it's true.
That wasn't what I didn't say that directly to my dad when he told me, although he did tell me in the car as well. But I felt that for me, people were like, weren't you devastated when you found out? I was like, I was
so relieved.
Validated. I was relieved.
So relieved.
I was going I haven't been crazy all these fucking years.
I was so relieved.
I was relieved. And as soon as you said the color, I felt like I could exhale. I've honestly, in the same way when Rachel had their moment of the
donors aren't dead.
They're dead.
Yeah.
I also I connected with you so hard in that moment because that verbalized also that sensation that I felt when I found out was I was able to exhale
Yeah.
for the first time and go,
Yeah.
I haven't been crazy this entire fucking
Right.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like to me, it felt like everything really was like just these tiny little subliminal like gaslighting moments. And like
Yes.
they were nothing. I just want to emphasize this. Nothing about this was done with poor intentions.
Right.
And
No.
it still doesn't change the fact that it was really hard.
Of course.
The quote I feel like that is so apropos is the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Exactly.
And I think that is something that as a society we're really starting to embrace, that your intentions are not in question, or your intention does not match your impact.
Yes.
And it's like we can all, almost everybody in this world, because obviously there are people who do act with malicious intentions. They do exist, but that is few and far between. Most human beings act with good intentions. Most human beings do. And what we have now learned in society is you could be acting with the best of intentions, but because you're not thinking fully through something, your impact does not match your intention.
Exactly.
And just because, and you have to apologize for your impact. You have to apologize for your impact, because because it comes back to also that I'm so sorry you feel that way.
Right. Which is like the worst thing to be told. And
I
like,
fucking hate that.
I'm
bullshit.
really glad
I've
that
gotten that a lot in my life.
It's the most.
It's
it's so
terrible.
dismissive and
It's
minimizing.
so
Yeah.
dismissive. And it's like, no, apologize for what you fucking did.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Take responsibility for your actions.
I got that all the time as
Yeah.
throughout my life, was I'm so sorry that you feel that way. And it's like, bullshit. You did it.
Yeah.
You did it. And I'm like, look, you don't have to, and I'm like, I'm not calling you a bad person.
Right.
Although I kind of am right now after you said that bullshit apology.
Yup.
But there is you aren't going to, I'm like, one, the person who did hurt you, they're like, you as a human being aren't going to learn that behavior leads to that impact unless you take ownership of the fact that your intention is also, there's some holes in your intention.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at least with your tactic.
Yeah.
Or you were being thoughtless. Like
you're
that's
being-
also like you know that's a way that people act too. They act thoughtlessly and they don't think they're
The long-term effects.
the long-term
of
effects.
things.
Yeah, and that's also anyway. I totally think that like everybody in this situation was acting out of protection
100%.
Yeah.
of each other, and the impact was that was really tough for me growing up.
Yeah.
and
You were lied to.
You
Yes.
thought you were at 12 years old studying your baby photos, with the idea of I'm going to protect my parents because I was switched at birth.
Protect their peace.
Protect their
Yeah,
peace.
protect
their Yeah.
peace. And because I have also this the actual tangible proof with the blood types. You were actively doing that at 12, and that was not a position you should have been put into. I mean, Alex's parents,
We love them, we support them.
We love you guys, yeah.
They were doing what was best at the time.
They were doing
I think
what was
that's the
best
other
at the time.
thing.
They did not have, but it's also, we are telling these stories to give future intended recipient parents and recipient parents who have younger children or who are maybe struggling with their donor conceived person right now, donor conceived child, adult right now. It is to give them a little bit more tools and understanding
Yes.
that what your situation is not unique.
No,
I've heard so many donor conceived people describe that.
Yeah,
And that's an unfair place to put you as a
100%.
child.
as a
Yeah.
child. And I talked to my parents before I agreed to do this, and because again, like my parents and I are very, very close, and I didn't want anything that I said on this podcast to be news to them. We have talked about this ad nauseum, and so it like brought up, my mom.
I love that you have been able to talk to your parents.
Yeah, thank
That's
goodness.
wonderful.
I mean,
Thank
it really
goodness.
is a testament to how strong our relationship is.
I love that.
And how strong, just like our family is, and that makes me really happy. And what I was talking to my mom about, she was like, and like she says this every time we have this conversation, and I think that like partially she needs to say it to reassure herself, and also she wants to reassure me. She's like, that like they did not go into this just kind of like willy-nilly. They had their obstetrician, they had lawyers, and they had consulted psychologists and who were who specialized in this, and they were told, do not tell her, she will never find out, she doesn't need to know, it is going to be damaging to tell her. And they did not know, like they did not have any information to the contrary. Again, this is the early 90s. Early 90s.
It was very common. I mean, I think it was 2010 was when that switched. I mean, there are still physicians today that tell recipient parents you never need to tell them, and
because they're not going to find out.
Because they're not going to quote
right.
quote. I'm like bullshit. They are, but it is.
We know.
We know, but that was common practice.
Yes,
it really was.
Yes, and
I do feel for those recipient parents who were told that.
Yeah,
I do feel for them because it was like
that's
that.
more the medical industry than them. It's
totally
not like their
100%.
fault.
And so what I said to my mom is I said, like, I just want you to understand that you were given advice by people who were looking out for the donor, the doctor, themselves, and you.
And the paycheck.
And nobody in that whole equation was looking out for me.
Yes.
And she, you know, she really heard that. And she's like, yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. And she, you know, she said that's like one regret that I really have in my life. And I really don't love being like, well, you know, the kind of like, what if we could go back and rewrite this? Because we can't. Like, this is the universe that we live in. And I ultimately am like I am very grateful to be here. I love my parents more than anything.
I want to drink because you said that.
I know. And I
we should have brought the alcohol down. That was a misnomer on my part. I apologize.
You're good.
I just feel abundantly grateful, like, for my life and everything in it.
That was another shot right there.
I know.
But I just, like, I don't like to think about if things could have been different. And she was like, I don't know that, like, you know, you would have gotten as much from knowing your biological parent from a young age as you do knowing her as an adult. And I said, I also don't know that, but I didn't get the opportunity to find out. And that's really...
And that's an unfair... I'm like, yeah,
that's not her call to make.
No, it isn't. That should have been your
my call. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so going back to the kind of narrative of this.
Yeah.
So we go home, you know, tense car ride home, and I'm just like, I think I was like just heavy breathing, just being like, oh my God. And we go home and my mom just goes into the house and goes, Kev, I told her. Like, didn't even need to say what it was. You told
me this, but every time
I said my dad's name. Hold on, wait. We have to redo this. We have to redo this. Okay, so my mom and I go back to my house, and she just pops into the door and goes, you know, to my dad's name. I told her, and they didn't even need to say what they were telling. And I mean, like, so it must have been weighing on their minds too. Like, I think that this was, so I don't, you know, I think that this was like an undercurrent.
The secret it doesn't just hurt the donor conceived person, it also hurts the recipient parents because they live in fear for their entire lives.
That must be terrifying as a parent too.
Yeah. And this was like a family
because
where
they're also thinking about it as if the child finds out,
then I'm a bad parent.
Then they're no longer going to love me.
Yeah. Right.
Ooh, yeah.
That's like the big fear, right? Is that like if they find out if we're not genetically related, then they're not obligated to like.
Which again totally breaks down. I mean, it's like it's you really can like the more you ask questions, the more you realize, oh, this entire thing is built on a house of cards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it here.
Yeah.
It's very drafty in this house of cards. So you know, my dad was like, "Do you have any questions?" And I asked, "Does my sister know?" And they said, "No, she doesn't." And then I also asked how many tries it took, and my parents told me that it worked on the first try. And I had been literally like in the same like unit that I asked about this for. I'm studying the statistics of people at my mom's age, which again is mid 40s, the time period, which is the early 90s, with donor eggs, the odds of having a live birth via egg donation, and it was something like 1 in 100,000. I don't know if the statistics have changed since then, but that's the one that I remember seeing, and I was just like, wow, the odds were so infinitesimally small, and it worked on the first try, which is absolutely wild. And they had, I think, an amount of money that they could spend on this, and they you know, didn't have to spend it all, thankfully. But yeah, so they you know, it was just like a very weird night. I don't really remember what we did, but I had therapy the next day, and I went.
Would you mind sharing what your dad's reaction was when you shared that statistic?
Did you tell your dad that statistic?
I think. Well, I said. Oh my God, Dad, I'm so sorry. I was like, how many tries did it take?
I remember what you're gonna say.
I said, how many tries did it take? And he said, 1. And he looks at me smugly and he goes, strong sperm. And I was like,
sorry.
That's also the joy of donor conception, is you know way too much about your parents, like bodily.
horrifying. But very funny. Like, you know, looking back, I'm like, oh, well, that's very funny,
Yeah,
Dad.
you know, like more as adults now.
I know,
like,
and my
whatever.
parents are both exceptionally funny people,
Yeah.
so like the whole thing was kind of slapstick. But yeah, I go to therapy the next morning. I'm just like in therapy because I'm an 18-year-old existing in the world,
course.
and I was like, you will never guess. I had the weirdest night last night. You'll never guess what happened. And I told her the story because like I don't think I understood the impact that it would have on my life like right away. Because also I don't know anybody
I
at this
didn't
point.
understand the impact for 15 years fully.
Yeah.
Not for 15 years was
Yep.
when I was able to fully understand it.
And like at this point in my life, I don't know any other donor conceived people.
No.
And so I like tell my therapist what happened, and she's like, we're gonna have to put a bookmark in this because like this is outside of my skill set to deal. Like she's like, I need to talk to somebody who has more expertise in stuff like this. I don't want to mess this up for you. And so I really respect her for doing that. Shout out Molly. Hi Molly.
Thank you.
this was you know my however 12 years ago therapist.
Good job, Molly.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, like she helped me work through it a lot. But I think like the thing that we ended up talking about is how the information of being donor conceived was not shocking to me, obviously, and it was to me it was like less kind of horrifying than the idea of being switched at birth, which to me felt a lot scarier.
Yeah. Because
so-
that's random.
Right. And so it was a relief. But the thing that like really stuck with me was my parents had always been like, we are your safe space. You can trust us. We are not a house where we have secrets. Like we are a door open house. We are, you know, like there were never any secrets growing up, etc. Except for this one
Except for that.
Except
big
for
one.
Big one. That's a big fucking secret.
Yeah.
And so to me, it wasn't the information that my mom and I aren't biologically related is like so irrelevant compared to the fact that this was concealed from me by both that my parents concealed both of this.
Yeah.
Both of them concealed this from me for 18 years. And they were, you know, when we had it out, kind of when we had these conversations when I was 18, they were like, you have to understand that we were doing the best with the information that we had at the time. And I said, I don't fault you for that. The thing that I have a really hard time accepting is that you've known me for 18 years. I have asked you so many times, why don't I look like you? Who do I look like? Because I said, I am professionally like a scientific researcher, a data analyst. And like, so that is kind of the brain that I have. I always want, and my dad's a reporter by training, and he always taught me the best thing to be is insatiably curious, and I was. And so I asked a lot of questions growing up, and they would deflect with like straight up incorrect information. And looking back and having to audit the narrative of my life and think about every time that my mom told me that like my eyes were from her parents, I'm like, these like little lies just kept accumulating, and I was just like, you could have just said nothing. Like you could have said something else, or like something that could have at least have been conceivably true. And so that part was a challenge for me, and it's been 12 years since we went through this. We have hashed it out when I was 18, and then we also, you know, more recently have talked about it, and I think we have come to a place where they know how I feel about it. They've accepted responsibility, and like I feel really heard by them. And again, like shout out to my parents, what a gift that is. And I think that that's really like for me was the only way that I could move forward with my life, because it's such a big part of your identity. And it was really hard for me as an 18-year-old to weave the donor conceived component of my identity into something that I felt was like much more fully formed. So I had a hard time talking to friends who I had known for a really long time about it, but had no problem telling strangers about it. So like I went back into this class where I didn't know anybody, and I was like, you guys will never believe the weekend that I had. This is crazy bananas. And told them all about it. But like when I had to talk to my two best friends from growing up about it, I was like, how do I even tell them this information?
Because they've like met your mom. Probably.
I mean, they were like raised in my house with me, basically.
Yeah.
And so I think that part is also really tough, like having to like kind of back weave that part of your narrative into your life. And it's such a critical part of your identity, and at least it is for me.
I mean, I remember making up excuses as to why I didn't look like my dad. And I would say, well, I look just like my mom, but I get my personality from my dad. And I remember trying to justify it because I knew something was off.
Right.
And you were a child.
When I was a child,
Yeah.
I knew something was off. And
So
I was
much
trying to.
child protecting their parents in this situation.
Yes. And it just goes to show you that it's like, and again, there are some donor conceived people who are genuinely shocked, and I don't
Right.
want to
Yeah.
like take away from them.
Oh no.
But there are, I would say, the amount of donor conceived people who I know who are genuinely know something was wrong, something was off,
Yeah.
and who were actively trying to puzzle it the fuck together. And it just really, to me, adds to the point of like, it should never be a surprise. There should never be a time when your child was told. This should always be part of your child's story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always.
Like, I think about the way that I talk about my sister having a different dad and coming from I don't remember. Like, people are like, oh, when did you find that out about your sister? I'm like, it's just always been a fact. And like,
Yeah.
that's highly, I don't remember that being told to me. And that's how and when people ask me.
I have a half sister as well from my dad's first marriage as well. And same thing. I don't remember when that was ever told to me. It was just always.
The thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
the thing.
And so when people ask me like, well, what age would you have wanted to know? I say before I could conceptualize what it really meant.
Yep.
And there's age appropriate ways to talk to kids about this
There's
too.
so many children's books that are now available that were not available like when we were kids.
Oh, I wish we had children's books
My
like
God,
that.
I know, right? But I do think that, there are so many that do exist now.
Yes.
They're everywhere,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's some that use, and it really depends. Like very age appropriate books. There are some books that use very, I would say, clinical terms, like they sperm, egg, and then there are some that use, I would say, more
Fluffy?
Like euphemistic.
yes,
Yeah.
words. So it really depends. And I think that those books are great, not just for the child, but also for the parent, because it really helps you find your language, and it can put it in. It's sort of like it's essentially like it's a car environment. It makes a nice little safe environment to talk about it.
Yeah.
Do you need help finding your biological parents? Whether you're donor conceived, adopted, or an NPE, please contact DNA Angels. DNA Angels is a nonprofit team of genetic genealogists that help you identify your biological parents. And this group is run by donor conceived people, adoptees, and NPEs, so they will emotionally have your back during this process. DNA Angels has identified almost 5,000 biological parents since 2019 using test results from Ancestry DNA. And they are a nonprofit because they believe that your financial situation should not stop you from identifying your family. If you are searching to identify and possibly connect with your biological donor or missing parent, please reach out to DNANGELS.org. Must be at least 14 to apply, have tested at Ancestry, and presumed parents born in the United States of America.
Would you feel comfortable telling us how you found the genetic parent biomom?
Yes. So my parents supported me doing 23andMe. And
Love it.
Yes. Yeah. They were always really supportive of that. In 2011 is when I tested. And so again,
That's early.
very early adopter.
Very early.
Yes, super early. And I think I got on Ancestry in 2014, maybe. So I knew that there were two databases. So I tested on 23andMe. There was very few people on there at the time. I think I got a couple of second cousin matches. And
By the way, everyone always asks this question:
Which is better?
Which is better? Ancestry has the larger database.
it's
Oh, it
true.
does?
It has a larger database, and specifically, if you need to work with like a genetic PI, like DNA Angels, you need to take Ancestry.
Do they give you like a downloadable file?
Yes,
Yes.
I mean you can
Got
download
it.
the raw data and like upload it to a bunch of different sites. But if your goal is to find as many siblings as possible, then yes, you want to take Ancestry and 23andMe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with 23andMe, and this is always the thing that I say, because people take 23andMe to be like, I'm going to do that to download to get health information. It is not a medical grade test. If you need health information, you
Go to
have
a
to
genetic
go
counselor.
You got to go seek a genetic counselor. So take both if you're actively like, I need to find siblings, because there's a lot of times where siblings are on one and not the other.
That is what happened to us. Yeah. Where I told you I had the half and I had to pull everyone together and
Exactly.
be like, hello.
No, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
I have some siblings on 23andMe, and then I have other relatives on Ancestry.
Yeah. You
and
got a bridge.
You got a bridge.
I'm the bridge.
And a lot of pods have that. They have like a couple siblings on one and a couple siblings on the other to
Yeah.
make sure that they can catch everybody.
That's what we do. Yeah, we got our bases all covered.
I have to do my heritage. That's the one.
That's what I need to do too.
I have
we
to
were
do-
going to remind each
we
other.
were right. This is us reminding
This
each
is
other.
remind each other. Good job.
I think you can upload to
Yeah,
my
I mean, we can
That's what you were
download.
saying.
That's
we can
what I did.
download the raw data from the other ones and upload it onto my
That's
heritage.
what we got to do.
That's
And now
what we
we're
gotta
holding
do.
each other accountable. Good job.
We're gonna do that.
yeah.
Okay, this
all
week.
right.
This week.
Perfect. Sure.
This week.
Before the podcast comes out.
Before the podcast.
That's it.
Fuck yes.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
All right, story.
Accountability
Story.
buddies.
Accountability
so,
buddies.
Yeah.
So my parents supported me doing those in 2011 and 2014. I had a couple of cousin matches. I had just always been on there and just kind of like lurking, and you get the new DNA relatives emails every once in a while, and I would just always check. I matched with a first cousin on my dad's side, which was in hindsight a relief, because we all know that just because they say that they use genetic material from one person, it doesn't mean that they did.
Whole fertility fraud situation is gross.
Yes, it's disgusting and really reprehensible, and I'm so glad that that didn't happen to my family.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, thank goodness.
For
and well, we know that didn't happen
Well, I
to
don't
me
think
at
they
least.
can retroactively.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I don't. As far as I'm aware, I don't think they can retroactively.
Not yet. Anyway.
Not yet. Reverse genetically engineer.
Yeah.
So I had just been on there, just lurking, and I'd always thought like I really want to find this person, the genetic parent, and I had always thought that I would have to hire a PI, and I always thought that I would want to do that, to really pursue that after my parents were gone, because I just like didn't, it felt icky, something about it just didn't feel great to hire somebody to like find a parent when I have two parents. And, I can unpack that in therapy later.
Again, and I just want to throw this out there because I, again, recently got a comment that said this: donor conceived people, it is valid to want to find
Yes.
the donor, the genetic parent. That is valid.
Totally valid.
You are that is 100% okay. I don't give a shit
Yes.
What
what
other people say?
society or
Correct.
what anyone else ever tells you. That is wanting to know who your biological parent is beyond a normal want.
It's
That
like a
is-
basic human right.
It should be a
that is-
basic human right.
The UN.
I thought it was.
The UN.
Oh, yeah.
believes
I
that
don't have basic
everyone-
human rights.
The UN believes that everyone has the right to know who their biological parents are. You have every right. Do not fucking let anybody tell you that you are not allowed to and that you shouldn't. My favorite excuse is people are like, well, you're not allowed to because of the contract. I didn't fucking
I didn't sign a
Contract.
Show me my signature on the fucking contract.
I didn't even have
Show it to me.
hands.
My
when
parents
this
didn't even
contract was
have a
made.
contract. You didn't even have.
Not.
I wouldn't have had
We
hands
weren't
if I
even.
wasn't born yet.
We didn't even. It's like we weren't even
Like
multicellular embryos. Like we were
How
not.
could we have signed anything when we were a single cell organism?
My parents signed a contract.
Yes.
I didn't sign a contract. They agreed not to, this was
Look
an
for the
anonymous
donor.
I didn't fucking agree.
I
have
agreed to
every right to
nothing.
do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Fuck
agreed
you.
to. I
Yeah.
agreed to literally no part of this. So again, like societally and also just like internally, I was just like, oh, it feels icky, and like, and if that's how you feel, that's also how you feel. Like you
Also,
don't
that's
need
how you
to.
feel.
Yeah.
If you have no interest in looking for your donor, that is also wonderful and peaceful.
Yeah,
and
it's all
amazing.
fine.
But I just
You're all
want to make
valid.
sure that,
Yes.
like, if you want to, you have permission to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, exactly.
If you need to hear this from
From the
from
DCP.
the DCP elders,
from the DCP, which I'm sorry that we're your fucking elders. I'm really sorry.
this ragtag group of misfit toys.
But the elders do declare. Well, and again, you have an egg donor, double donor conceived, sperm donor that all put our rubber stamp on. You are valid.
Valid.
Yes.
Valid.
Your wants and needs are valid.
Your wants and needs are valid.
Yes.
Go.
So I had all these like second cousins, and again, science research background. I was like, I don't know. I could probably like figure this out, but it would take a lot of effort and a lot of digging and a lot of money. And I just like kind of was bopping along through life, just being like, I wonder if I'm going to see someone on the street one day that looks like me.
Yep.
And
Every time I see somebody who is Ashkenazi, I'm always just like,
Hello.
hello. Well, I just had a guest on who's Ashkenazi, and I'm like, just out of curiosity.
You
Because
wanted to
we-
make sure you weren't related.
Well, because we actually, like, we could pass. And I just was like, you took a DNA test, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course. I'm like, okay, just want to be...
just want to make sure that we're not
just wanna make
accidental
sure.
cousins.
Yeah.
And
Or
it's a-
siblings.
Or siblings. yeah.
Siblings. Because it was just like, I'm like, we easily could pass her family.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of Ashkenazi Jews too.
I mean, if I saw you on the, I would immediately go like, possible.
Possible. Yes, and I obviously have taken both DNA tests, so we're not
we know
not
we're not.
siblings.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it wasn't until it was early 2022, so that's last year. I got one of those things that it's like, you have new DNA relatives from 23andMe, and it was like, this person wants to connect with you, and I was like, that's so weird. That person has the same last name as like my cousin's husband, but like we wouldn't be related.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, I wonder if it's like, my cousin's husband, if they like, it's so strange.
This is so funny.
I know. So I opened the email, and by the way, my parents, this is like early 2022, like peak Omicron. So
Yes.
we're in the COVID time machine, and I have not been going out. I'm like not doing much of anything.
My roommate got Omicron.
Yeah.
My roommate did. That was a bad moment. That was rough.
Yeah.
So
We were delivering a lot of PB&Js to his room.
Yeah. So it's like, things are not going great, I would say. Like
It was January.
It was January.
Late
Like,
January.
yeah. And it's not, things topically are just like not good. And
Yeah.
It's just like,
We weren't traumatized as a globe
yeah.
from that. I don't know what you're saying.
And like, I am, somebody who was very COVID cautious and was not going out a lot. I was seeing my parents, and so like I was not seeing anybody else at that time.
Yeah.
And my parents were visiting me from the East Coast in San Francisco. They were in my house at the time, and I get this email, and I'm like getting ready to go to log on to work. It's like 8:30 in the morning, and I open it, and it says predicted genetic relationship, half sibling, and it was the opposite experience of when my parents told me that I was donor conceived, where I felt like the blood
Was
rush.
this you?
Yeah.
That's why I'm bouncing. I'm like,
when
it's
I
me.
so like the same like when I felt like the color
The
returned.
Taylor Swift, I'm the problem.
I'm
it's
the
me.
problem. It's me. Yeah.
So like the experience that I had when my parents told me that I was donor conceived and had the blood rush back into my face, I felt all of the blood drain from my body.
Oh.
And it wasn't like
Look what you did.
Sorry.
it wasn't like a bad thing, but I just like it was so surprising.
Yeah.
When you
so
see that,
surprising.
Sibling season, though.
Oh,
It was sibling season.
January.
Sibling season.
And sibling season is upon us.
It
Yeah,
is a
happy
very
sibling season.
merry sibling
A
season to
merry
all who
sibling,
celebrate.
Yes. And to all a good fucking night.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
May your sibling season be
Merry and whatever.
uneventful.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever
it
you
to-
need. Yeah, yeah.
Whatever you want it to be, I hope that's what it is.
Yeah. Or very eventful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Eventful, non-eventful, whatever is it you're kind of looking for.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
hoping for uneventful
This year. Yeah.
But so I'm like literally sitting across the breakfast table from my parents, and I was like, I need to go into my room really quickly for a meeting. And I go into my
Oh,
room.
they probably thought you were doing drugs. Like, I would
No, it was like
in the morning?
8 in the morning.
It was a Friday.
It was a
too.
Friday
It was
morning.
a Friday morning.
I'm sorry, but if somebody randomly was like, I need to go to my room right now, like, I would assume, maybe it's because I'm a stand-up comic, I'd be like, oh, they're doing coke.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Like,
I
that's
was
what I
doing-
would immediately go like, oh, that's a drugs.
Absolutely. No, that's not what I was doing.
She was writing me a very lovely
I was
message.
writing, yes. Like I said, I'm a very verbose writer,
Yeah.
and I wanted to tread carefully because I
You
didn't
didn't know what I knew.
I didn't know what Rachel knew. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what if this is their car moment where they
Yeah.
find out,
Yes.
you know,
I've had to do
You've had that.
I've written one of those where I was like, I think how I phrased it and what I believe is the standard, I believe is, I think there's two places where you can go like, hey, it seems like we've been matched as half siblings. If you would like to talk more on this, I'm open. That's one version I've heard. The other one is if you wanted to be a little bit more a little bit more forward, is you go like, hey, we've been matched as half siblings. I'm a sperm, egg, double donor conceived person.
Yep.
If you would like to talk more on this, I'm here. So but it's not to you basically just don't go, you're donor conceived.
well, right, because I also didn't know
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
Rachel was like our genetic parents raised child.
I didn't know that for you either. And
Right.
so I was like,
Yeah.
who the hell are you?
You have to tread carefully because you
don't know what they know.
and you might be the one delivering the news, so it has to be handled carefully.
Yeah.
Which is where like you have to, unfortunately, you need to tread carefully.
Yeah, so I said to Rachel, hi, like, I know why
I can
we're
find the message.
I was literally like, I know why we're related, but I said like, I was conceived via egg donation. I don't know if you know why we matched, but this is what I know. And Rachel messaged me back immediately, and
I was sitting in the car.
yeah, car
I
crash.
was alone. What do you mean? I was like, I remember because I got
Again,
that
we
message.
have a theme of cars.
The
here.
theme is cars. That's a new
Which is
title.
ironic because I hate
Cars.
driving. I grew up here. I live in San Francisco, and I'm like, I hate driving.
Yeah, no, I was at work. I pulled into the hotel that I was going to that day. I pulled in. I opened up my phone. I had the 23andMe notification where it's like, your DNA results are ready. And my heart went, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I have to open
That
this.
you should get checked if your heart's doing that.
Well-
That's not a noise I've ever associated.
I wasn't doing that.
I'm just,
You know what it was. It was
I'm just
shut up.
saying, we don't have medical information. I'm like, look, we need to be careful with that shit, okay?
Yeah.
We don't take risks as
No,
DCP.
we really
No,
don't.
we don't.
But no, yeah, it was
so,
one of those things.
So we start messaging back and forth, and like I find out that Rachel has a twin brother that is also my half brother, and that we have some like a couple of random mutual friends because we didn't grow up that like I grew up in New York City.
New York.
And
I grew up 2 hours upstate. We have very random mutual friends.
Super random.
Which I thought was
Love that.
hilarious.
Yeah.
'Cause we were like, we need to connect on Facebook. We're like, we need to see who we know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, how do we know these people?
Yeah, exactly. And totally
So
random.
like small world, first of all.
Small world. And then we just like, like I said, it was peak Omicron. It was dark. It was winter. We're both on the West Coast. Our families are on the East Coast. And we got
And
to
we're both a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, super nerds. We got to chit chatting, and Rachel was like,
So
"Oh, do you
many
want
of
to?"
us DCP are nerds. That's a common theme I
Yeah.
get. We're like we all kind of nerd out a little bit.
Yeah.
Super nerds.
I don't know why, but it's just like it's a common theme whenever I sit down with other
'Cause-
conceived people.
It's because
We
all of
like
our
things.
biological parents are doctors.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
We're all
Jesus.
we are coming, again, eugenics. We are
Yeah.
coming from very smart genes.
Yeah, it's
Generally, yeah.
I blame both of my parents.
I would say the quote unquote,
Yeah.
the quote unquote. We come from the
Yeah.
conventional. We come from the eugenics genes, but
Mm-hmm.
we are the majority of us who we're all nerds.
Yeah. Genes.
A lot of us are.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Anyway, so we got to
Oh,
talking.
that's gonna sit with me.
I'm sorry. Do you want a hug?
I just
Okay. We'll just let Laura simmer.
I'm sitting in my Felios, okay?
We're
the
11
Felios.
Felios today.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going while I feel the full Cheerio of the Felio.
While you mentally process that. Oh my god. So we got to talking and we were just chit chatting one night, and Rachel was like, "Do you want a video chat?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, it's so cool to be able to see this person that's related to you move
Yeah.
and speak.
I
and
wanted to like see your voice.
yeah,
No,
hear
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I wanted to like hear you talk and like look at your facial features.
yeah, and like
be
see how you move.
Yeah, and like what do we have that's similar?
Yeah.
You know, and what do we have that's different? I'm like, I want to like pick out the different pieces.
Well,
Yeah.
because you specifically
Mm-hmm.
you met Rachel before you met your biological parents.
Did you?
I didn't meet you in person, but we had
Sorry,
video
I apologize.
chatted.
Rachel, you met Alex before
Yes.
you
Oh,
met
yeah,
your.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this is your
Alex
first
was my first genetic sibling meet.
So this
ever.
is the first time, besides your twin brother.
Yeah.
This is the first time you're genetic mirroring.
Yes.
So I can understand why for you this is extraordinarily impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was cool.
So we're talking one night, again, peak Omicron. I'm not going anywhere. I was training for a half Ironman. So I was like doing much of nothing besides just like, running my body into the ground. And Rachel was like, "Oh, did I ever show you the piece of paper that I have about..."
I forgot the paper.
It's
I was going
okay,
to bring
it's
it
okay.
today. I'm so sorry. I realized 10 minutes ago.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
But Rachel was like, "Have I ever showed you a piece of paper with information about our genetic parent?" And I was like, "No, you definitely haven't shown that to me. I would for sure remember that." And they like go back into a storage bin in their house in Oregon
Yeah.
and like pull out this piece of notebook paper, like from a spiral notebook looking thing. Like, it's
That's my mom.
perforated. Yeah, it's like a perforated,
My
like
mom
ripped.
takes notes and then.
Yeah.
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 I've seen the photo of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
It
paper.
looks like something like it looks like notes that I would have made
Like
in high school.
It looks
yeah.
like a grocery list. And so
of
it's
just features.
yeah.
Again, eugenics.
Yeah. And it looks like it was done with haste, and they like had to
Oh,
run
it was
to
very,
yeah.
I told you like the whole story where it was like they got the call, they got the notes, they ran down to New York to get the egg.
Right.
That was it. It
Right.
was like boom, boom, boom.
And so I
Quick, before it's out of sale.
Literally, they're like quick before it goes bad.
yeah, before the best by date has expired. Like what?
Wow. What?
Yeah. So I'm looking at this information, and I said to myself, I think that's enough information that I can find her.
What was on the piece of paper?
Yeah.
Just to share with everyone without like giving away personal
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
So it was some
Just so that they can have an idea.
yeah, some basic features. So, and this is to preface. So, I'm 2 years older than Rachel.
Yep.
My parents only knew that this person like somewhat closely resembled my mom and wanted the money to buy a piano. And once my mom knew that she wanted the money to buy a piano for whatever reason, that like really spoke to my mother, and she was like, "That's it. That's our person."
That's
Which is
cute.
really sweet.
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
adorable.
I find it very interesting to
funny.
always learn what was bought.
I know it's funny. I was like bartered for a piano in a way.
You were a piano, okay?
Yeah.
Weren't we
Alright.
safety?
yeah. You were.
We were safety in a more expensive apartment with the doorman so she didn't get mugged.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Oh, right.
I feel
Rent.
better.
You were Rent. I mean, basically, yeah, Rent.
You
Money.
were Rent. That should be the merch. Is like, what were we? A piano,
Rent.
Spring Break, Rent,
A new car.
a new car,
Books.
student loans, books,
Yeah.
Designer
Laptops.
bags.
designer
Yeah.
bags.
I know it's.
I haven't heard piano yet.
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
like what kind of piano? Like,
I don't know. We'd have to
nice
ask her.
one.
Yeah, we'll have to ask her.
Are we talking about like a Steinway?
No. So the story that she told us is that, and spoiler alert, we did meet her.
Yeah.
And get the whole story.
Yeah.
In case anybody was waiting for that
I mean,
spoiler.
are we an upright, a baby grand?
I know, right?
Want to know.
We have to ask her.
Yeah.
So my understanding from the story that she told is that she wanted to support herself through grad school by teaching piano lessons. So
Okay.
she didn't have like the startup money to buy the piano. So this was the startup money to buy the piano. So I can't imagine that it was like, in her student apartment,
Like a
that
giant
it was like
Steinway.
a grand piano. But
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
we got like an upright
Yeah.
Yamaha
Honk.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm looking at this. It's basic like features.
It said like her age.
It said her age. It
It said
said
stuff that's like really unique, I think. I only know because I looked at it last
Didn't
night.
it say like she was like left-handed or right-handed?
it said that she was. I might have said that she was
Left-handed,
left.
right?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
left-handed.
It said
it's
where she went to school.
undergrad, and it also the critical piece of information for me was that it said what program she was in
Yep.
at the. And I'm not going to say the school name,
Of course.
but it said what program she was in at the school,
And it said what age she was.
and it said what age she was.
Oh,
and
that is 100% enough information.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Even if you're not good at this.
right.
And
You're good at this.
Yes.
And what was your favorite search engine to find people?
LinkedIn.com.
LinkedIn.
Not
For all of-
sponsored.
That's how you not sponsored.
For all of our donor conceived people out there, LinkedIn.
You can
is
find
your
a
friend.
lot on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you can learn a lot.
Find
It
a
is
lot.
great.
It
So
is.
Yeah.
it also had some very like esoteric information on it. So we learned that she plays a very unique instrument. She is
Likes
a
reading. You
like
know, she's
yeah,
very into
voracious
reading and
reader.
music.
She's
Like,
a trained ballet dancer. She
Yeah.
does aerobics, like all this stuff.
And then it was like stuff about the family,
Yeah.
like mom history, dad history, things
Yeah.
you should know like from the genetic parents.
Yeah, and like her parents also were like highly educated people and like
Yeah.
had a certain profession that was pretty unique.
Yeah.
And so with that information, I was like, oh, I think that's enough. And one night I just decided, I was like, cracked knuckles.
Can you do
Trigger
that
warning
into the
for
microphone?
that. Trigger warning.
No, you can edit that sound out. That's gross.
No, I love it. I love the sound crack. I'm like, can you do that into the microphone?
I loved it for the comedic effect, but I'm just like, oh, trigger warning for anyone who hates that fucking noise. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mom. I know you hate that noise. So I said, I think I tonight's the night. Like again, I'm not doing anything. I'm not seeing anybody. I'm trying to stay healthy, leading up to my half Ironman. And I just said, I think my best bet is LinkedIn, and I'm going to go on LinkedIn and look at every person who lists their education in
Yo,
this.
you need to volunteer for DNA Angels.
Well, there's
been
a follow
saying
up. There's a follow after this. There's a follow up story that I didn't get to tell you guys.
Yeah.
When we hung out
okay,
at
so
the bar.
sorry, I
Yeah.
keep interrupting you. Keep going.
Yeah. So I get on LinkedIn. I look at everybody who was at this place in the 90s, and because we knew that she was a student in 91 and 93 because those are the years that we were conceived.
Yep.
And I just start clicking through. I like start looking at every person who has a name that is either a name that I associate with women or that couldn't be determined. And everybody who has a picture, I'm looking. Obviously, I'm white, so I'm looking for white women
people, yeah.
or people who don't have pictures. And so I'm just like clicking through and like doing process of elimination. So we knew her undergrad, and we knew the approximate dates that she could be. And so I'm going through and eliminating people who like that could not be them.
Yes.
And keeping open tabs of like people's profiles where I'm like, it's a possibility. And I was probably like at least 100 profiles into this. Like she was not at the top. And I click on her profile. She does not have a picture at this time. And I look at the education. I'm like, oh, that is the correct undergrad. But these are big schools. So it's, whatever. The dates don't line up perfectly, but like they're pretty close.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, she has her own business. I'm going to Google her. And I Google her business website pops up and I click on it and it's a big photo of her. And you know how similar she and I look.
You look. I saw it, and my was just like, yo, genetics are strong.
Right?
Like, yo.
Yeah.
Yo.
It's striking.
This was like I felt
She was in denial.
I felt like I contact genetic mirrored.
No.
Like it was so hard.
No,
Like
it's so funny. She was in denial for so long.
It wasn't
sending me it.
It wasn't even
"It's
like a being.
not her."
It wasn't even a being in denial. It was like I need to. It felt like a really weighty thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing as like telling my parents that I thought I was switched at birth. It felt like such a weighty assertion
be
to
like,
make.
I think you are my genetic parent.
And so I was like,
I get it, but it was still like.
I know.
It was.
I had Rachel on this journey with me, and this was, by the way, the first time in my whole life that I have had someone on this journey with me. So that's really special. I know.
I feel bad because I've always had a twin. And so I'm like, I felt like I was never alone. I mean, did he care as much as I do? Not really. But I'm like, at least I had someone to be like, this fucking sucks.
But I would
know
say,
you
and like, Ben, we fully support you and everything.
We obviously support my brother whatever he
support
wants.
Ben.
Yeah.
But we also, you had a sibling now who, for lack of better terms, hyperfixated on this.
Yeah, we both hyperfixated at the exact same
Hyperfixated
time.
on this and cared, and this was
Yeah.
something, because donor conceived people, it really is like either, what I have found is there's very few people in the middle. Usually you're like, I'm
We're
not
all
fucking
in or
touching this.
nothing.
It's all in or nothing. And whatever it is, very few in the middle. So I totally, the fact that you both could find somebody who like was like, no, I'm gonna fucking deep dive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was also like, I'm gonna like be the ringleader of this. Like I accept the responsibility.
I was so tired because when I got you, I also got my other siblings.
Yeah,
and I'm
so
like,
Rachel's dealing with both sides of this, and I'm like, I will carry the torch, and it was something
appreciate
that
it.
I really wanted to
Because
do.
you have
also.
siblings coming in from egg and sperm
yeah, and I
sides.
was like, hello, everybody. Stop.
Yeah, and I remember you saying
and
like,
two
wow,
different vibes.
Yeah. Oh, very different.
Yeah, and you were saying like this is overwhelming. Like I remember
Yeah.
when you first messaged me back, you were like, oh my god, this is so overwhelming. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, I can't even imagine because
Yeah.
I'm only getting one at a time.
Yeah.
and like we know that egg pods tend to be smaller than
Yeah.
sperm
Yeah.
pods just because of the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I opened her website and it was again I like keep having these moments where like I can like feel color either coming back or leaving my body.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments where I was just like it was
was
flabbergasted.
No, I mean it
Yeah.
was twin.
Yeah.
It was because I've seen the picture.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
fucking twin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She like her hair color I think like has like a little bit more gray in it.
Yeah, but
That
age,
was
whatever.
Barely, yeah.
Barely.
Yeah.
Like barely, and it looks fabulous.
It looks great.
But
Yeah,
it looks
you look-
fabulous. Like love you, Morgan.
Yeah.
But it was. It was.
It's startling, yeah. And like and I've heard the term genetic bewilderment used a lot, and I would say that like bewilderment really is the closest thing that like described seeing her for the first time on a computer screen. I was just like I was like jaw hanging open, and but there were a couple of things that gave me pause. So there's of course inconsistencies between like the donor profile, which is this hand scrawled piece of paper, and the reality of this person.
Yeah.
Which happens all the time, even in banks that are really well organized. This was not a bank. This was like very early on. There was not the same level of organization that there is now. And
They really throw a lot of. They really shine that shit real well.
yeah, I know, right? This was not. Yeah, this was like so early on in the process of egg donation, and I'm like, oh, I wonder. And this was like before I even sent it to you. I did some of my own recognizance.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if she has a bio page. And so she does have a bio. And so I'm reading. It's like, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. Morgan, was trained at this place and like all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, those, check. The specific program matches. And then there's a fun facts about Morgan section. And I was like, oh, yeah, hell yeah, jackpot. And one of the fun facts was that and the instrument is so specific that I don't even want to say it because I'm scared that we're going to be able to identify
It's
her.
a very specific instrument.
Yeah.
It's a very, like, this isn't your...
It's not a piano.
It's not piano. It's not
violin.
It's not guitar.
Yeah.
So it was this Dr. Morgan plays this specific instrument. And I was just like, what are the odds that a woman was getting this degree in these years? It's also like women in STEM have come along.
And there were more things on that on the fact sheet and on the website. Like it was the left-handed. Was
Everything
also,
matched.
Dancing,
Yes.
like
French,
All
basically
of it was there.
everything that was on that paper was on her fun facts.
Yeah.
And she sent me that and I almost cried. I sent it to my boss and I pulled it up at work. I was like, this matches my paper to a T. I'm like, at that point I was like, come on. I'm like,
Also,
it can't not be her. And you're like,
what
if? And I'm like, shut up.
I also have to say the fact that you're essentially, I love that the piece of paper was the donor profile.
It's all I got.
But I have to say the fact that it was accurate is a fucking miracle.
I know.
Yeah. So that I'm
it wasn't,
happy.
and it wasn't totally accurate.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I've sat down with our genetic parent since this and said like this is what we were given, and she's
Whoa, before
oh
we go
yeah
there,
let's
go.
finish.
We're Jeremy Burming too much.
Okay, so
we have to have some linear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I sent this to Rachel and I was like, I think I found her. And Rachel's like, yeah, you absolutely did. And in the meantime, like I have a couple of friends who I'll shout out. So my best friend from growing up, Olivia, my best friend, hi Olivia, my best friend in San Francisco, Kel, hi Kel, and my best friend from college, Corinne, hi Corinne. So they're all on this journey with me. These are like my humans. They're wonderful. And I was like,
Good job, humans.
and I was like, y'all, what do you think? And they're all just like, girl. Come on. And I'm like, I don't know, you guys. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
what?
every
But
time you were like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm literally just gonna
I
stab
mean,
you.
it really. I mean, looking at the, because again, it would be like Mary Kate going like, "Do Ashley and I look alike?"
No, it was like
But,
it was like Lindsay Lohan in
Parent Trap.
in the Parent Trap,
Yeah.
where Lindsay Lohan is looking at Lindsay Lohan and being like, "Hallie, are we sisters?" And that was like kind of. I mean, it's like
really
not
was.
quite.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty fucking close. It was pretty close.
I mean, that's the funny part too, because like, let's get to like reaching out to her, but
Yeah.
when we did, she was like, I don't need to do it. She was like,
Yeah.
should I do a DNA test? And she looked at a photo and she's like,
No.
no, I'm
yeah.
good.
No, that is the DNA test.
That is the DNA
That is the test. We did it. It's done.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was again, Hallie and Annie from Parents. They
Yeah.
didn't do 23andMe. They
They
kind
knew.
of knew.
Yeah. So I sent that to Rachel and I was like, okay, I want to do again, this is like very, very who I am as a person. I was like, I need to do all my fact checking. Like I am not going to, my parents and I have both used the phrase like kind of like blow up her life. Like I'm not going to like go down this road unless I'm fairly as close to 100% certain as possible that this is the correct road to go down. And so
Which is again something that donor conceived people go with. All the
yeah,
goddamn
it's very
time.
burdensome. Like I spent a lot of time building out on Ancestry, a family tree. Like I searched I want to talk about like my methods a little bit because I feel like it's actually very helpful for donor conceived
Please.
people. So I got a newspapers.com subscription, which was totally worth the money. And I connected my DNA on Ancestry to a family tree, which I had done this for like my social family and had not connected my DNA, but I was like, this is going to be the genetic family tree. And I was like, let's just suppose, and I put her in the mom slot and I ran her name through newspapers.com and I found a newspaper, and she knows all this, by the way. So again, this is like a surprise to no one. And I found her sister's wedding announcement. And from there, I got her parents and all of her siblings' names. And because the census is public after, I think, the 1950s at this point, once you get into our grandparent generation, it's so easy to connect the dots because you have all of the public census records. So I had some second cousins, third cousins on Ancestry, and basically I crawled up the branches of this family tree. And these are like very large Catholic families on both sides with many, many siblings and cousins. So I'm like crawling my way up like a canopy at this point of trees. And I just kept going up until I had found common ancestors with all of my other DNA relatives on Ancestry that weren't from my dad's side. So basically Ancestry will allow you to link your DNA to a family tree, and then it will identify if you've identified a common ancestor with somebody else who you have a genetic match with that also has their DNA linked to a family tree. And sometimes you have to ask them to share if their information's private, but most of the folks that I connected with have public family trees, which is, I don't know that I would make that decision. That's like a very personal decision to make. But I'm very grateful that they did. And so once I had literally connected all of the, like, these are living people, my living second, third cousins, I was like, okay, like this is, DNA doesn't lie, so this is pretty irrefutable. And so I said to Rachel and Ben, I was like, what do we do? Like, should we reach? And at that point I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with saying that this is like, I'm 99% sure that this is the right person, but it took like a month for me to get there. So
timeline, end of January, meet.
Yes.
We find out about the donor?
Sometime in like
When?
in February, because I reached out to her on March 8th.
Yeah.
And
For the first time.
For the first time.
Okay.
And I turned, this is all like, I feel like the fact that I was turning 30 during all of this is also relevant because, like, again, it's like, you know,
it's a turning point.
It's a big turning point.
Yeah.
And
I found my donor at 29, and then I found my first 3 siblings at 30.
yeah. So it's
I get it.
'Tis the season.
And 30 is also when I hyper fixated on donor conception. Like that was when it started.
Yeah.
Oh, it's And so I was like, okay, like, should we reach out to her? And we had also like thoroughly audited her you know, whatever
Her
was
Facebook
public
was
on
way
Facebook.
too open at the time.
I know, we were like, lock it down.
Yeah.
And so we said, like, we think the best bet is probably to try to get in touch with her on Facebook. And so I wrote a long message and sent it to Ben and Rachel, and they gave their feedback. And we decided that it would make sense for me to send it because I found her, and also because we
You
look
look
alike.
the most alike. Yeah.
We do look the most alike.
And I was like, it's easiest because if
yeah.
I reach out, she's gonna be like, "Who the hell are you?"
But yeah. So I sent her this message, and for those of you who are Facebook users, you know that if you're not connected on Facebook, it goes into your other inbox. And she didn't see it. And she's not a big social media. She's not an online person. She's not chronically online like the three of us.
I don't know what you mean.
So it just went into the ether, and we were just like, well, okay, like, I guess we're just gonna wait
forever.
And I did my half Ironman, turned 30, and so I had a couple of things going on at that point. And then sometime when I was in Southern California for my race, I had uploaded my DNA to MyHeritage again a long time ago, and somebody on there reached out to me and was like, hey, how are we related? And at this point I have built a many generational family tree, and I know exactly who she is, and I know exactly how we're related. But I was just like, oh, I was trying to like play it cool, and I was like,
hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah.
And I was basically like, oh, I think through my biological maternal side, I don't know that much about that side of the family. And she's like, oh, whose daughter are you? Morgan's? And I was like, so not exactly, but like also not no. Like, and
that's a complicated question. Da-da-da-da-da.
yeah. And so I told her the abbreviated version of the story, and she was basically like, this is amazing. Can I help you? Like, can we hop on a call? And so she and I had a conversation.
I love that. Whoever that relative is, like, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you.
Yeah, she is the MVP of this whole story.
Literally.
I love it.
Yeah. Shout out to cousin. Well, you can call her Cousin T.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cousin T.
Yeah, she's wonderful, and we had a great conversation and just like got to know each other a little bit. And she said, like, I'm still in touch with this side of the family. Do you want me to get in touch with her for you? And I said, yes, I would love that.
Yes, please.
And this was, I think she and I talked on like a Tuesday, and it was so lovely. I like sent her a thank you note, and she like, just was corresponding with me over email. So sweet. And then she's on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. I wake up on Thursday morning and she's like, just spoke to Morgan. She'll be in touch soon. And I was like, yeah, I was like, what? And
That's a bomb to drop, guys.
Yup.
yeah. And she was like using email kind of like you would text somebody, like every.
We love older people here.
Yeah. She's 70 and
Does I've had the case where like my dad or some of my relatives will like type the whole body of the email
Yes.
in the
It was
subject,
exactly that.
Yep.
in the subject line, and then the body is empty, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not how this works.
yes.
That's not how email works.
I know. And I will say, so I had talked to my family of origin about about the fact that I had found a new sibling, and
That's you.
that a new sibling had found me.
Yeah.
And the first person that I told was my sister, who I grew up with. And I was like, I just, I was like, I know that like this goes without saying, but like you're my sister, and like I know that she and I have known that we weren't genetically related for a number of years now. And she's like, I know that you felt like you needed to say that, but it just know that it went without saying. Like, she was so sweet and so supportive. And
I love supportive family members. I love that.
my sister has been like unwaveringly supportive.
I love Thank
Yeah.
you, sister.
Yeah, she's very private, so we won't say her name, but she's
No.
she's
Thank you.
wonderful. And she said, like, let me know if you need help with the parent, like navigating this, etc. And she always was like checks in and asks about you guys, and just like is.
That's so sweet.
I know she's really lovely.
Yeah.
And then the next call that I made after I told my sister was my parents, and I said I need to talk to you, like, or can I talk to you guys about something? And I said nothing's wrong, but like I need to talk to you both. Can you put me on speakerphone? And I told them what happened, and I said we identified your donor, and I'm gonna reach out. And the first thing they said was, you can't do that. And they were like, we signed a contract. And I said, I did not sign a we signed a contract. And I was like,
This
yes.
is everyone. That
DCP, take a drink.
DCP drinking game right there.
We signed a contract, and I said, I did not sign a contract. I did not consent to any of this, and I'm going to reach out. And
Fuck yes.
and
Yes.
and my dad
DCP power.
Yeah.
and I remember one of my parents saying, like, you can't blow up her life like that. And I said, I am not going to blow up her life.
Sending a message
Right.
of like, hi, is not blowing up someone's life.
No.
Right.
If you showed up to her house
Yes.
with a full bandstand,
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
a mariachi band.
a mariachi, like something with a giant sign
Yeah.
going,
Saying,
hey,
"Hi,
mom.
Right.
Like, okay,
That's-
maybe we can make that argument.
Yeah.
Right. No, this was like
sending-
sending I'm like, you could literally
message.
on Facebook going, excuse me.
I don't want to be a bother, but
I don't want to be a mom. I just want to say hi.
But I think we're
I think
related.
we have a little bit of a different definition of blowing someone.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were not thrilled with that development at first, and they actually, like, again, kudos to my parents. They said, we're going to go out to dinner and talk about this, the two of us, and like we don't like they could, I think they could feel that they like were not having a good reaction to it.
I appreciate that
Yes.
recognition.
They're like, we're gonna take some space, and then
Yeah, that's good.
and you know
Good
what?
for them.
And the thing that I said to them is, I was like, I love you guys respectfully. This is my story.
yeah, it is.
And I
Yes.
get, and it felt like such a powerful, like, taking back something that, like, really the narrative that I was now writing.
yeah.
Yes.
And they came back, later.
Really, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm very excited
I'm just
about
like, I want to snap. I want to
like,
snap for you.
And they came back later that night, and my mom called me, and she was like, you're right. Like, this is, yes.
Yes.
Shout out,
Thank
Mom.
you, Mom. Good job, Mom. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, you're right, this is your narrative, and you get to like write the story how you want now, and like we support you,
I love that.
which
That's
was
all
great.
you want from your parents.
And it's like
I
was
love growth.
Yeah.
I love growth.
I love support. You
I know
I love that.
the growth arc is incredible. And like, I was going to send that message with or I said to them, I'm doing this with or without your support. I'm telling you this.
Yeah, you were.
And I was like, I'm telling you this because I love you and I'm inviting you on this journey with me.
Yeah.
I love this. I love everything about
Isn't
this.
it so cute?
I love it. Well, because you're being caught. You're being, I would say, mindful.
Yes.
But you're also setting boundaries
I like
and
that
you're
she's,
standing your
like-
ground.
Yeah.
And you are validating your own. You're validating your own emotions, which is so big in the donor conceived world.
And it was
And like all
yeah.
of this is just so wonderful.
Yeah.
And you got the emotional arc growth of your parents
It's
being
like a really good Disney movie.
it is.
I know, and it was being mindful versus being accommodating, which I think
Yeah.
is like a
Yes.
key difference. And
Yeah.
I said, like, I don't want to do this behind your back. Like, I want you
love
to
it.
be involved
Oh,
with this.
transparency being important for donor conceived people. What?
I know.
Who would have
Wild,
fucking
right?
thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? So I moving forward now
Yeah.
to a month later, it was like early first week of April, I get the little notification on Facebook that like it was like Morgan has accepted. I was like, what are we calling her again? Has accepted your.
Every time I think about it, I get scared.
I know.
I remember her sending us a really long message.
I know. Again, very verbose
She's very
writers.
verbose. It's
Very-
lovely, but I get automatically anxious.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like,
It's
what
like
did
the
I do?
S's.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely. I go into inner child of like, oh my god, I'm in trouble.
I'm in trouble.
Literally,
Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
So-
and
I'm
I'm
in trouble. I totally hear that.
Yeah.
So I get this message I get the notification that like this person has accepted my message, and they just said, they were like, hi, thank you so much for your thoughtful, sweet, and sensitive message. I'm the one who helped your family. And she said it like, I'd long wondered if I would ever receive a message like this one day. but I didn't, it's still shocking. I'm very private. And she was like, I need some time to digest this. And I was like, yeah, of course you do. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
You kind of were just like, hi, you have 3 more children.
I totally understand.
That's kind
that,
of a shock,
but
you know?
I appreciate her verbalizing it the way that she did to you.
Oh, yeah.
And I can totally understand that this was, even though she did make this choice, she absolutely knew the result of it.
Yeah.
I can still understand the reality of it going, oh, this is big. Okay.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, needless to say, like, this was on a Thursday. My workday was like completely shot after that. I'm so sorry to my former employer, but
I'm not.
yeah, I was like, I'm not getting anything else done today. So basically, she accepts my Facebook message and we start corresponding like a little bit. She said, I imagine that at the very least, you need an updated medical history.
Yeah, we were all like, yes.
I was like,
Gimme,
please.
please.
And
Right
so
now.
she was like, it's going to be easier over email. Can you give me your email and your Rachel
twins'
and
email,
Ben's,
yeah.
the twins' email. And so she writes the subject line, medical history and more. And so she said like there's a couple of things that you should be mindful of, like that run in my family. And I remember I've read these messages so many times. They were like these beautiful. She's a beautiful writer.
She's a very good writer.
And she was like, I imagine that you have a lot of questions. I do too. It's hard to know where to begin when there's so much to ask.
Yeah.
And so she said, I'll begin here. Like, when did you learn that you were a product of donor conception? And, like, what was your experience with that? And so, like, we got to tell our stories and she told us a little bit about her stories. And we would, like, I
and
just
she sent us
equated it.
photos, too,
She sent us
initially, which I
photos,
thought was really sweet.
That is really
She's
I
like, here's
appreciate
photos
that.
of me. I think she sent, like, trying to remember the order, because she sent us a whole bunch.
And this was like going on over the course of like a couple of months. We would
Yeah.
like it was like writing love letters. Like they were these like beautiful
familial
love letters.
Yeah.
And it was really sweet because like we had 30
We
years
all
to
had
catch
so
up on.
much
We had a
to
lot to
say,
say.
yeah.
And it was like my little treat that I looked forward to every morning, because she's on the East Coast, I was on the West Coast, and so sometimes I would like wake up to like this beautiful note in my inbox, and it's just like all of these little nuggets of information that I just previously didn't know about. And eventually, so we're corresponding over this through the summer.
And eventually branches off, too. Like, initially it was, like, the 4 of us. So me, Ben, Alex, and Morgan in this email chain. But eventually we're like, let's, like, individualize ourselves a little bit. So we're like, we'll split it off. We'll each have our own conversation because, like,
Smart.
I mean, I really wanted to get to know about, like, her just, like, interests in things. I feel like we all wanted different information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I
There's
wanted to let
different things-
everyone, like, do their own thing, you know?
That totally, and developing individual relationships with each of you, and no, how many? Remind me how many people are in the egg donor conceived pod?
5 if you count her raised children.
Yeah, I count her raised children.
I also
so
count her raised children.
Me, you, my twin, and then her 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
And her 2
so-
kids are significantly younger than us.
Yes, so Ben and I are in the middle,
okay.
which is fun.
Yeah,
I always
so I'm-
wanted an older sister, now I have one.
I am currently the youngest, and no, if you
The bebe?
I'm the bebe of the donor conceived siblings. If we include my donors naturally conceived siblings, then I am in the middle as well.
I like being in the middle. It's nice.
It's fun. I
I feel like protected.
I feel like as a stand-up comic, I feel like I just embody middle child syndrome.
I mean, I was just growing up as a twin, and I had elder sibling energy from that, because I am 20 minutes older than my twin. Don't get it wrong.
Did you hear that, Ben?
Did you hear that,
Did you
Ben?
hear that, Ben?
He
Your
is very
older
aware. But, you know, like,
We take
growing
that
up with
20
a twin.
minutes seriously.
We do. But, like, that, you know, being a twin, you're just like, that's it. That's all I got. And now I'm like, oh, I have you, and then I have younger siblings, and then I even have more on the sperm donor side, which is
Topsy-turvy.
we have feelings.
I have so many feelings.
We have so many feelings. We have Helios.
Yeah.
I had the experience of being the youngest sibling between me and my sister. She went to college when I was 5, so then I had the experience of being an only child. And then I, at 30, got
A bunch of younger
siblings. So I truly have, and in the grand scheme of all of my siblings, I'm in the middle, if you count my sister.
Yeah.
And so I really have gotten just the full spectrum of birth order. So it's been a trip, y'all. But yeah, so we were corresponding over the summer, and I was going to London for a wedding, and then stopping through the East Coast on my way back, and she actually said, do you want to meet in person? And I was just like, this is all I have ever wanted. When people talk about like, you know, the typical like the icebreaker question, it's like, who would you want to go to a dinner party with? Like, she would have been my pick.
Yeah.
Like, truly. And
me
like,
too.
yeah.
Let's do that sometime.
I know, right? Have a dinner party.
Yeah.
And so when she was like, I would like, I'm aware that you live far away. Like, let's meet up. I was just like, that's everything I've ever. And for her to suggest it was like so.
Yeah.
So
I
we're
was just like,
trying to play it cool, or are we past that?
I mean, this was all happening over email, and I was like, I would really like, I was definitely, I was trying to play it cool. And like, I think when I've done some writing about this just for myself, and like, I think ultimately I didn't really allow myself to fully like express that I wanted a relationship with this person. I'm like, oh, all I want is medical history. Like, no, I want to know this person and I want to like be buds with them.
Yeah.
I feel like I would say for a lot of donor conceived people, they do that for safety. I mean, there are donor conceived people who absolutely will openly go, no, I wanted a relationship with my donor, with my biological parent. And yeah, and I think that's, you know, some donor conceived people I feel like are willing and feel safe saying that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of donor conceived people who are like, no, I just want a medical history. I mean, and that's all they feel comfortable.
That's all I felt comfortable saying, and like deep down.
I mean, I was afraid when we were first getting to know the donor. I was like, what if she's a bad person? You know, like what if she's we don't know.
What if she's bigoted? Like
what if she's a bigot? What if
like
she's
my donor?
Like because you know, like Rachel's.
I'm trans, and so I'm like, I don't want to be connected with someone who's going to be a dick to me about my gender.
That is unfortunately, there are donor conceived people who I have spoken to where the donor is homophobic.
I believe it. That's another issue.
And the donor conceived person themselves is queer.
Yeah.
Or they come from a queer
parent,
family. And they're just like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me?
That was my concern with the siblings too. Like, obviously not like saying anything about you, but I'm like, when I get a new sibling, I'm like, what can I tell them about me?
You don't know. You have to suss it out first.
You have to suss out. Like, it's for your own
appreciate.
safety, which is terrifying to think about.
And luckily, she, our genetic parent, was really explicit. Like, actually, it wasn't explicit. It was like very tactfully implicit about. She was like, I believe that like a woman's right to like choose when and how she starts her own family is like paramount to human rights, and she was like, that should give you a clue as to my political beliefs.
Yeah,
and I was
we're like, thank you.
Yeah, that hits all
we
the
were like,
buttons.
breathe. No, we all just
Sigh of
sighed.
relief.
We're all just like, oh, thank gosh.
I can totally understand that. Right, that being a huge sigh.
Because then
Yeah,
there's
it
also
was.
like, what if half of your genetics are from a bigot?
It's a bummer.
Yeah,
it's a bummer.
Huge bummer.
It is a bummer.
Yeah.
I will 100% say.
I'm sorry.
Bring it down to Bummer Town.
No, it is a bummer when you realize, like, oh, my donor is, and I had the biological family member that I was connected with who helped me find him. She really very politely and very politically sort of like warned me that my donor had some issues.
Distasteful things.
She was just like, yeah, we are no contact. And she was like, yeah, he's not the nicest. And she said that as carefully as she could. But as soon as, I mean, it was very clear. As soon as I saw his Facebook, I was like, oh, we have very different values.
I mean, that's why we stalked her Facebook.
Yeah,
you know, we were like, we wanted to make sure before we reached out that it was safe.
And it is very disappointing. It is really, like, it is hard that you're just like, well, and it's very weird.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird. And I've talked to a bunch of donor conceived people and recipient parents who find the donor later in life, and they go, I would have never
picked this person.
I would have never picked this person.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I know my mom and my dad very well, and if they had met my donor ahead of time, they would have never have picked him based off of his values and how he speaks about other human beings. They would have never have picked him ever. Like, because my parent, like, that would have been very against my parents' values. Because this man is very openly bigoted.
That's disgusting.
It's a bummer.
I mean, I feel
Bummer
the
town.
opposite.
It's a bummer. But I also find that that's very weird, learning, oh, this person who I have a biological child with,
Right.
I would never have, and
I don't like them.
Yeah, I don't like them as a
know?
person.
Yeah.
I want to keep donor conceived people's privacy, but like
Of
there's
course.
another donor conceived person who I know who was FaceTiming with their donor, and their recipient, their raising parent overheard them, and they were like, that person has some problems. And they were like, be careful with them. That person has some very I don't want to like...
Yeah, we'll talk later.
I don't want to... But it's like, that person has some very serious issues. Please be careful. And unfortunately, the raising parent was correct and accurate.
Ooh.
And was like, that... But that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it has been like for, like, donor-conceived people who are from queer parents to find out... Or are queer themselves, who find out that their donor was homophobic, which happens all the fucking time.
I believe that.
Happens all the fucking time.
The nice thing is that I can't say that about our donor because I mean I've told you before, like we're friends now, like on social media, and she posts photos, and the photo that's on her website, I have it as my photo for her, my contacts, and I showed it to you, and I'm like, look at this. I'm like, I've shown you. I'm like, look, we came from her. She's such a powerful woman.
Yeah, she's somebody who like I think like I would. And she's actually okay. Let me finish.
Sorry, we're not done with this,
We're really Jeremy Bearming here.
Yeah.
So she says, "Do you want to meet?" And I was like, "Yes." And so we like schedule a time to meet.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. I'm familiar with the part of the country that she's from, and had spent a lot of time there in college. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna like pick a restaurant that, or like a place that is like specifically like I want it to be quiet. I want it to be like counter service because I do not want anybody to bother us.
Yep.
Smart.
And I was just like, I'm super intentional. And it's so I suggested this place. She's like, oh my God, I love that place. I'm like, of course you do. Like, of course, yeah, I'm like, duh. And I said to my mom, like, I really want you to come with me. Like, I want to meet her by myself, and then I want you to come by at the end. And my mom is like, of course, if you want me to do this, like, I will do this. And so we drove to this place, and I saw her walk in ahead of me, and like I could see the hair, and my mom saw her too, and my mom just looks at me and she goes, "Are you ready?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she gave me a big hug, and I went, and our bio parent turns around and sees me and like obviously like knows what I look like, and like it was really that Spider-Man meme. And she just like has a big grin on her. She's so warm. She just has like a big grin on her face.
She's so warm.
And
she's such a warm person.
And I was like, oh my God, do we hug? And she goes, of course we do. And she just gave me a big hug.
I just get all bouncy because it's really happy.
It's a really, really lovely story.
Yeah.
And we sat at this coffee shop and talked for 4 hours.
Oh my God.
And everyone's like, what did you talk about? And I'm like, I don't know. I blacked out. Like, obviously
Everything.
I don't remember anything. Like, I remember all of it and none of it. And it was like such an emotionally intense moment.
And you had the genetic mirroring.
Yeah. And also like I, at one point was...
I'm sure you were studying her eyebrow hairs.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, literally.
Obviously.
Yeah, going like...
Literally.
Yeah, just like staring.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
every freckle.
Yeah. Her follicles, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And at one point I was like, oh my God, like I wonder what people like in this cafe think is happening right now, because like this is such
a moment.
Well, this is like one of the moments that defines my life. And then I realized that like if you are just not listening and you're just looking in, I'm like, it's a mother and daughter having a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. And I had that. I love it because I feel like we had the same thing with her, but at different times.
Yeah, because you met. So
then her. When did you meet her again? I'm trying to figure out the timeline.
So this was all happening Labor Day 2022. So I met our.
This was just last year.
This was last year. I met her January of this year. Like,
you two just met in January?
No, so we met Labor Day
of last year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So a little over a year.
A little. So I met our genetic parent in.
This is
I'm like the family archivist over here. So
you
I
really
met
are. It's great.
This was all.
You
it was
and Ben know things.
Yeah, it was Labor Day 2022. So I met our genetic mom, and then the following day I met Ben and Rachel. In Central. So it was so funny because we were meeting up. We were just going to go have a picnic in the park, and they ran into me outside of the building where I grew up, which is not where I live any longer. But I was like, this is like the apartment where I was raised.
Because my friends work at the church that is next door to her apartment.
Where my sister went to preschool.
Where her sister went to preschool. If you want to get even creepier. The world is too small.
By the way, my genetic parent and I get our haircut at the same place.
You still do? Or
I mean,
the place
doesn't exist, but before it closed, haircut at the same place, same favorite bookstore in like multiple. Yeah. Anyway, we were. It feels like our
You've
lives
been
were like,
crossing paths.
yeah, we've been crossing paths
Have
a
you
lot.
heard of the invisible string theory? Okay, because it's been popping. Have you heard of the
Is this
invisible string theory?
like the Taylor Swift song "Invisible String"?
I don't know.
Not sponsored.
Or red string theory maybe, where it's like people have red string or invisible string, where it's like they're connected to someone for their entire lives, but they keep crossing paths.
Yeah,
and then
does
at
feel
one
like
point
that.
they'll just meet. But it's that string theory that you're just always constantly connected, no matter what.
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like that.
so I met Rachel, and I had like I knew that our genetic parent had 2 kids who she had been really thoughtful about telling this to, because
She told them before we all met.
Yeah.
Because she wanted them to like finish classes for the semester. And she's like, I'll tell them in like May, June.
And so the backstory here is that when we were born, the chance of having a live birth via egg donation with the type of risks that our parents had was exceptionally low. And she's said to me a couple of times, she's like, I have to emphasize to you that I was told that there was no chance that this was going to work for your parents.
Whoa.
Yeah, she was like, I was told that the odds are so small. You are doing a nice thing for these people. It's good for research, but this is not going to happen for them. And so like you basically like you don't have to worry about kids coming back, which is
What?
a ridiculous thing to
That's
say.
a ridiculous thing to say.
So she had not told her kids, because she's like, why would I? You know, like again, like
She didn't think we existed.
she didn't think we existed. She really didn't.
Yeah.
And
And it's not her fault.
no,
you
it's
know?
not her fault. It was
Yeah.
again the fertility
This
industry
is the industry being like fucking with us.
Yeah.
right.
Jesus.
Just completely gaslighty.
Yeah, exactly. And
Again, it's a system set up to fail.
It really
Right.
is.
And so she had to go back and tell her kids that we existed, and they, you know, they had their like I'm not privy to kind of what happened there, and I don't, you know, that's their business. But ultimately, like she and like we all got connected via social media, and her daughter, I think initially was like a little bit reticent to meet me. I was the one who was like coming in from out of town.
I can understand.
She was excited
I can
though.
totally
I remember
get
her
it.
being excited, but like still hesitant. You
Yeah,
know?
and also she did not consent to be in this situation.
Yeah,
She's
also-
another
No.
person who did not consent
Yeah.
to any of this.
I always get asked all the time because my donor had 2 naturally born conceived children who are both younger than me, and everybody, including some of my siblings, are like, we need to tell them, and some people are like, you have to tell them that this is like
Yoo-hoo.
about the donor conception, because my donor he donated for 6 years, so
Oy.
like our you know, for us our pod is very easily 50 people.
Yeah.
And I keep getting asked, like, you need to tell them, it is their right to know as well. And I'm like,
It's not your right to tell them.
I'm like, it is their right to know as well, but we are going into an ethics territory where it's like, I should not be the one to tell them.
Yep.
That's really like
That's shitty.
I don't know them well enough. Maybe they would want to know. And maybe they would want to know from me. And maybe me reaching out to them would be like, holy shit, it would be an incredible moment for them. I don't know them well enough. I don't know them at all.
Right.
And it's like, in the same way, we didn't have this choice. Our autonomy was taken away. It is not upon me to do that to them.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's one thing. Now, I think it's totally fucking fair game. You come onto a DNA website, fair game.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna
Right,
message someone.
you're looking.
100% fair
Yeah.
game. But for me to go actively reach out to them, and
And,
I
like,
do know who they
searching
are,
for them.
and I know
Yeah.
who they are.
Yeah.
I have their names. I know exactly who they are. I could. It to me, one, there's no way optically it's going to look good, because it's going to look like I'm just trying to get revenge on their father.
Right.
There's no way, even if that's not my intention. My intention is like, you have the right to know this for your own safety of accidental incest. Even if that's my intention, there's no way that that's going to be the impact, intention versus impact. And as much as like, yes, I do think it is their right to know. And very selfishly, with that, maybe that 1% chance that they would want to know who I am, do I want to reach out to them so much? I do, very selfishly. I know that it would be wrong.
Yeah, that was a problem. So when I
just know it would be, and it's like, and I would fully understand why they naturally would be protective of their father.
Yeah.
right, and when I reached out initially, I said there were lines that I wasn't willing to cross, and one of them was reaching out to
Absolutely.
her
Sibling.
children.
Yeah.
And also like to any member of her family that like wasn't on a DNA site, I was not willing to do that.
Yeah, if they're on a DNA site, fuck yeah.
Right. If they're on a DNA site, like they're fair game. But if
Yeah.
they're not on a DNA site, like I was not willing to reach out to any living member of her family. So,
What about Dad?
very funny. You can't reach out to dead people. I'm not a medium, unfortunately, so I can't reach out to dead people.
I will say though, if you are the donor and you're not on a DNA website, you're still fair game.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
Just,
Yes.
It's fair game. It's just
Yeah.
the family.
Yeah.
You made a
is different
choice.
thing.
Yeah, you can
The
decide
family's genetics are still there though, so like.
Yeah.
I think that one's a different one, but I would say a family member, it's like we go into an ethics territory that's specifically their kids.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I was like, I'm absolutely not willing to cross that line. And she and I have talked about this, and she's like, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, so I was in town for a long weekend, and her daughter ended up messaging me and saying like, actually, like I do want to meet you. Are you around? And so, we met at a coffee shop near, she lives very close to where my parents live. And, we met at a coffee shop and just had a really lovely conversation.
I love that.
It was super, super nice. And, we're 10 years apart. I think she had just turned 20. This is like the weekend of her 20th birthday. I'm like,
Yeah.
happy birthday, girl. Like, I'm your,
You have siblings.
I'm your gift. And surprise. And she and I like have since formed like this really, really lovely relationship that,
love that.
to me is like something that I am so, so grateful for, and
Yeah.
was a really like unexpected positive consequence of this. And like, we had coffee yesterday, like we went out to dinner, and it's just, it's, and she'll just sometimes like randomly text me being like, I need advice on this. And I'm like, oh yes, I love this.
The joke is that she'll text Alex because I'm not a girl and she needs older sister.
Yeah, she does
advice.
need older sister.
And I'm like, I can't help.
Yeah, not a girl.
Not a girl.
Well, what was the term that you used at the bar again?
I don't remember.
Okay,
I think
never
we said in the context. So if I'm referring to Rachel and our other sister,
We say
together. We say
sisters.
sisters. So we have like a sisters group chat. But if I'm
sisters,
talking,
not sisters.
yeah, like
So
CIS, yeah.
CIS?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our joke.
And then if I'm referring to Rachel just by themselves, I call them my sibling.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been like just so nice and like so healing to just know all these people. Ultimately, like super positive experience. My mom got to meet her donor.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I- which and oh my God, this is so funny. My mom said, thank you. You gave me the gift of a lifetime. And for me to like see them interact and talk was so incredible, and like was
That's
not
very impactful.
it was
yeah.
so impactful, and it was something that I really thought was not going to happen because I was not going to pursue this while my mom was still alive. And so I never thought that they would meet. And my my mom said, thanks for the gift of a lifetime. And our genetic parent was like, you did all of the work, like you raised her. I really, in the grand scheme of things, did so little. And my mom goes, she's a good egg, isn't she? And and both me and Morgan were just like, ah. And my mom was like, oh my God, she like didn't even mean to make the joke, and it was so funny. And it was just like so, I know, it was so lovely.
Yeah.
And like so it's been about a year since we met, a little over. And in that year, we've gotten together a couple of different times and have
We've
like
gone hiking
we've
together.
gone hiking together.
And I think it's
and
adorable, and I'm never doing that. I'm like,
It's
y'all
so
can
cute,
go.
yeah.
I'm an indoor
I want to go see Broadway shows with her.
I love it,
Or like an
yeah.
opera or something. I'm like, I want to go like do an experience, but like
Let's go to a
indoors.
drag show.
Yeah.
she would love that.
she?
I think she would love that.
Let's take her to a
I
drag
think, yeah,
I went to a
she's,
drag show last night.
I know, I
That's
saw.
what you were doing.
I was like, oh, so
I
jealous.
saw Jinx Monsoon and Ben Crown.
Yeah.
Love. Amazing.
Classics.
Yeah.
Yes,
Classics.
I was so excited. It was delightful. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was. I am obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so like,
Yeah.
so this whole thing, like, it just really opened up my world. And she and I have a lot in common, also surface level, that like I just didn't have in common with my parents. And so I always felt a little bit out of place in my own family.
Black sheep?
Yeah, little black sheep. Like, and like, I don't think that,
I didn't hear black sheep.
What did I say?
I know. No, I know you said black sheep, but for whatever reason, I heard butt shape.
yes, my whole existence.
Butt shape.
Butt shape.
And I was just like, what about? I heard she was butt shaped. What about her butt? What?
Really, like, the genetic mirroring is really all to do with gluteal shape.
Yeah, that's how
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
No, just kidding. No, I'm totally kidding. But it was like,
I was about to say, shit, we're gonna have to do a part 2 just about the butt shaving because I really need to understand this.
To be continued.
This is not a story I've heard yet, and I thought I've heard everything.
but it was like the little things that are big things. So like I attend to like a more kind of like logical, scientific
Yeah.
pathway of thinking, and my parents are both really great writers. We said that our genetic parent's also a very verbose writer, but she's a science writer. And so we just like have that kind of like nerdology in common. And like I've actually called her to ask for help with like a work thing before, which is so fun. And like we both are very active, like I mentioned. And that's something that like my parents are active people, but they're not like me. Like
They don't do marathons.
Right. Yeah. I've done 2 marathons. And yeah, there were just like other like little things where I was just like, oh, that makes sense. And it feels such like an integration of different, you know, just like things that I didn't know where they came from, or my parents would be like, where did this come from? And I'm like, you know better than I do that we don't know where it comes from.
You know better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, weird.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Crazy.
So anyway, to me it's been like an overwhelmingly positive experience, and that's part of why I really like telling my story, is that I think that so many of, and this is again like this is my story, it's my unique story. No 2 stories are alike, but I do think it's really in a sea of experiences that are largely very challenging to hear a bright spot, because I think that there's a lot of I was fearful around like what, you know, like you could be rejected by this person.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's no guarantee that the donor is going to want a relationship with you. There's no guarantee that you guys are going to like each other.
And sometimes a lot of donors ghost after a while. Like they'll have a couple of conversations and then ghost.
Yeah, and it's just been like, it's been overwhelmingly positive for me to have these people in my life, and they're not everybody is a part of my like everyday existence, and it's not something that I think about actively every day, but it is something that now, you know, like have a lot more peace around. And I'm just abundantly grateful that things went. I know that like Rachel has talked about how they wish they had tested sooner, because I was just like out there in like the universe.
I still feel so guilty.
And I always tell Rachel, I'm like, don't feel guilty. Like I really think that things worked out the way that they were meant to. Like I think if you are a donor conceived person who is reaching out to your genetic parent for the first time, you're having to put yourself out there, and ultimately it's putting yourself up for a lot of rejection. And I'm very rejection sensitive, and I think that by the time we reached out to our genetic parent, I felt like I could handle that. Like I felt like I had the support system. I had hashed out a lot of these issues with my parents, and we had come to an understanding, and we had like made peace with how things went down. And to me, that timing was so important. And I think that I would have barreled, because I am who I am. I would have barreled headfirst into finding this person no matter what. And I think that the timing ultimately was like, so it worked out the way that it was meant to. And I will say that as a late discovery, DCP who really late discovered their genetic family, there was definitely a grieving process over all of the like lost childhood and like the 30 lost years for me.
There's a lot of, I mean, that's something that I hear just so much with donor conceived people, is the trauma of the lost years with siblings is what I hear.
Ow!
Are you doing that?
I keep hitting this.
Is
we
what
keep
I
saying
hear.
that every time we like go apart from each other. I'm like, I feel sad and guilty because it's like, I feel also like we got along instantly.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily happen with all donor conceived people.
Especially
like,
when you get into a big pod.
I mean, yeah,
the
like
big ones,
on my sperm donor side, I'm finding it a lot more difficult to maneuver just because there's so many people.
There's so many. Well, when people are just like, you know, whenever I refer to and I talk about the pods that are 100.
Oh yeah.
And I hear people going, "Oh my God, that's so cool," and
No.
I'm like, "No,
you can't even remember everyone's
traumatic."
names.
I'm like. All of the pods of 100 that I have spoken to
Are traumatized.
They are fucking traumatized by this.
I bet.
Absolutely. Across the board, traumatized. I'm like, one, you can't have a good relationship, an impactful relationship with
100
everyone.
people. No.
You're not going to get along with all of them.
Oh, God,
no. And also, it's very trauma. And I'm like, then you have the accidental incest fear. And then you also have the trauma of going, I was produced like a fucking Walmart product.
Right.
Oh, like a cow.
Yeah.
Almost. Like, here's my number. Beep, bop, boop, goodbye.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was I was part of a litter.
Yes.
Which is actually incorrect because dog breeding is more regulated.
Love that for us.
Love that for us.
But yeah,
I mean,
going back to being sad for a second. Because, like, you know, like, we got along so well and instantaneously, and then I'm like, what if we had met when we were younger?
I know.
You know, like, our formative years, if we were able to be siblings together when we were growing up.
My sister said the exact same thing. She was like, I felt like we had our relationship stolen from us. We could have had each other our entire life. And
yeah, now I might cry.
and I think it also prevents because relationships, because there are so many donor conceived people who find out later in life who are just traumatized with the whole situation. They're like, I can't fucking touch this.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they had been told this at an early age, if they had been exposed to it, the relationship of having the ability to have a relationship with donor conceived siblings would have been a positive, potentially, not a negative. And siblings absolutely have the right to be together from the beginning. And they should have the access and the availability to have that relationship throughout their whole life.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm grateful I met you when I did.
Yeah,
I just wish I met you sooner.
I know, and I just think about like how lonely the experience of being donor conceived is.
So isolating.
It's so
I said that to you
isolating.
this morning. I was like, I feel so isolated. Like, even in the community, like, each experience is so unique and so different that even while we do have our community, I feel like with everyone's trauma being so individualized, it's still like you gotta, I don't even know, you know, it's like, how do we move forward at an individual level while we have the group, but then also what we are individually going through?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of like just trying to like shoulder each other's loads that happens, and I really appreciate you know, the way that honestly a lot of donor conceived people connect is through the internet, because people who know that they're donor conceived are few and far between, especially kind of in our generation.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate when I see folks like on the internet being like, I'm tapped out from explaining this, and somebody else like swoops right in and is like, I got you.
Yeah.
And it does feel like a very supportive community.
I would say by and large it really is. It's a very fierce group. Because I think we all got together and we were just like, oh shit,
There's more of us.
there's a lot more of us.
Yeah.
And all of our stories are very similar.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And and that it kind of how you sort of mentioned how you were like you held very, very deep down that you wanted that relationship with your donor. I felt like all of us with our cumulative feelings about being donor conceived, I know for me certainly, I kept very, very hidden deep down. And now suddenly being in a community and everyone saying, I felt this, I felt this, I felt this, it was the first time I allowed that feeling to come up, and I was able to go, I have also felt this.
Yeah.
And I felt safe and I felt seen and I felt validated, and it was the first time I could start actually healing that piece of me.
Yeah.
And then when I started becoming an absolute fucking dick and monster about all this shit.
I know. I mean, like, it's so funny that, like, you know, the TikTok algorithm works in mysterious ways, and it just like fed your content to me, and I was like, how'd you know? That's wild. Like, TikTok, maybe if TikTok had existed when I was younger, it would have just been like, hey, have you ever thought?
Apparently, there are a lot of followers of mine who, from following me and me going, take a fucking test,
And they
found out they are donor conceived. Apparently, there's like a group of people
Start a support group.
I need to buy T-shirts for saying Laura made me find out I'm donor conceived.
I know. I
found
really
out I was donor conceived through Laura High, and all I got was a stupid T-shirt.
Yes, I really need that.
Make that.
We have great merch ideas, is all I'm saying.
I have a master's in marketing.
We're the chief merchandising officers.
So sorry. I'm glad you were able to get truth. And I mean, I was messaging with one going like, okay, here's my circumstance. This is it. Do you think I'm donor conceived? And I'm looking at it going like, oh fuck, there's donor conceived. And I just was like,
You're like, I don't know.
I haven't gotten
I
those
don't know,
messages
homegirl.
yet, thankfully.
I did. And what I told them, I was like, well, I'm like, look, according to patterns of our group, this definitely raises red flags. And I was like, these are the questions that I would ask your parents. This is what I would do. And they were like, okay. And I want to say a day later, they messaged me back and they're like, I'm egg donor conceived. And I was like, okay.
Welcome to the club.
I was like, all right, this is a lot. This is what I'm like, okay, here are some support groups, here's a community, here's everything. You take this. I'm like, this is on your own timeline.
Yeah.
You don't like, and I'm like, I'm here. If you need anything, please feel free to DM me. But like, I was part of that conversation. I was just like, oh motherfucker.
You're like, this was not what I got into stand-up comedy.
Like, this is
right?
not. Well, I also, I haven't met. I didn't tell you guys. I didn't tell you.
What? Sure.
So there was someone who was on the lineup that you guys saw who messaged me the day after and said, hey, I know this is super weird,
but I might be donor conceived.
but my girlfriend was there at the show, and the way that you described your donor, she thinks that that's her dad.
No, we did talk about this.
We did talk about this.
Did.
We did.
We did.
We talked
We
about
may
her.
have.
That sounds like her dad. She thinks that you're her sister. And I was like, what? Wait, what?
What are the odds?
And I just was like, well, I was like, okay, you know what? What are they? And so what I basically was like, all right, let's do that. I was like, before we start naming names, I'm like, let's see if we can narrow it down. And I was like, let's start with this. Where is her dad from? And he was like, her dad is from here. Same person. And my donor has very like my donor has very specific professions that are like, it's a very specific Venn diagram.
Yeah.
And the fact that fits into exactly those professions and from the exact same place. And then we did a couple more things. It all lined up. Family, everything, children, everything. And I was like, and I literally was like, I think I need to talk to her.
Yeah.
And sent me the phone number, called her immediately, and was like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, thank you for taking this. I know this. And she's just so sweet. She's just like, hi, how are you doing? And I'm like, I know who he is. And again, I have to be very, very careful about my donor's identity because even though he's a total, piece of shit, I'm like, I'm not going to name him because of the platform I have. That dude will get like
Hounded.
Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to be. So I was like, I gave her. I was like, this is the first letter of his last name, and she's like, oh no, not my dad. I'm like, okay, there we go.
Great.
Thank you.
End
Thank you so
story.
much.
Yeah.
But she's like, I probably do know him though. And she was like, because it's a very, very, very
Small community.
Small community. She's like, oh yeah, no, I probably know him. Like probably 100%. And I was like, okay.
How do you feel about that?
It brings it close. Well, it also just made me very aware that I was like, what if my donor conceived siblings come to my show and they're like, interessante.
So you're making me just not want to do comedy now.
I know. In some ways, I'm like, that would be the best fucking way if somebody was in the audience and was like, that's my dad.
Do it for the plot, Laura. Do it for the plot.
Do it for the plot. But I'm waiting for the day when one of my followers, who's been following me for all this time, takes the DNA test and is like, that's my sister.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for this. I'm like, it's going to happen.
It has to happen.
It will happen.
Just like statistically.
Statistically, it will. It will happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the day I'm fucking waiting for. Somebody who's been following me for
Let
years.
me know when that happens.
I will
get you a
say,
cake.
I will say the experience of like, because we have the full spectrum here. The experience of being egg donor conceived is, I would say, like, different in a number of ways because there's fewer of us.
Yep.
I am the oldest, not like literally the oldest,
One
but like
of them, though.
virtually the oldest.
Elder.
I'm definitely the egg
Love
donor
you.
conceived elder. I know. And like our youngest sister like finds ways to call me grandma in so many different ways. Like she's like Gen Z, solidly Gen Z, and like has the best time making me feel old. And I love it. Like
That
it's
is
so
their
good.
pastime. Like,
It really
that
is.
their hobby.
Yeah. She cracks me up.
They
She's
call me geriatric on fucking TikTok all the
yeah,
time.
my
yeah.
God.
I know the younger kids are really just
They're mean.
They are.
mean.
They're like, but I love it. I love it when it comes from her. It's like I know it's out of love, but I will say
I don't think the random ones with no username calling me geriatric, I don't think that comes from love.
not that, but
No. Sibling?
yeah, you're like, are you my sister? But I will say, and like I know that you guys touched on this when Rachel came on the pod. The pods are the podcast. These sibling pods are much more finite.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
like so
hope.
whenever Rachel says that they have a new sibling, the first thing that I do is check my 23andMe matches because I know that it's I would like it to be a 0 chance, but it's a non-zero chance that person could also be my sibling.
Yeah.
But because of the way the technology worked and our genetic parent actually had a really good, it's helpful that she's well versed in this because she had a good explanation about like why it's probably not like why our sibling pod is probably
finite.
finite.
Yeah. It's a little bit more
plausible. I'd say.
Yeah, exactly.
I think my only advice to you was like, don't close the box.
Yeah, you were like, we were talking about
Don't tie
boxing
it up.
and putting it
Leave
away.
it ajar.
You were like, I'm done with that. There's no more. It's
And you're
fine.
like, no
And I was
box,
like,
open it.
I wouldn't tie the knot quite yet.
Yeah, and I'm like, but I bowed it.
And I'm like, make it a
It's a
loose
pretty
bow.
It's a pretty bow.
It's a pretty bow, but just
Loosen it up a little.
loosen it up a little bit, just in case,
Yeah.
because that could. You just we know our industry well
I
enough
know.
where it's just like we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I because I don't like, I don't live in fear of a ton of siblings just like coming out of the woodwork. Like if there are more, we know that it's like a very small amount because of the way that egg donation worked.
Yeah.
And so I just like the concerns that I have are I think really different from you guys, but also like really I feel like I'm building the plane as I fly it with being egg donor conceived and navigating the world as an adult because I'm in that first generation. There are so few people who are egg donor conceived in the world.
It's much. I mean, there are significantly less egg donor conceived people than sperm donor conceived, just by the nature of
The
how
conception.
do we get sperm, splitting sperm up, shipping sperm around,
Super easy.
inseminating sperm. Like it's such an easier prospect.
Yeah, I know. Every time,
Medically non-invasive.
right? Exactly.
It's their favorite thing.
And every time we talk to our genetic parent about it, she refers to it as them making a deposit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It cracks me up, and
thanks,
she's doing it facetiously because
Yeah.
so. Like I don't want to tell her story for her, but like she's always said to like whenever we've talked about kind of the more emotional side of like connecting and how that was for both of us, she's like, to me what was so obvious is that you felt like you only had one shot here to do this right, and like I could tell that you had put so much thought and effort into that initial message, and that you felt like this was your only chance to not mess this up. And it makes me so sad that you were put in that position where you felt that way. And she also has said, because Rachel's talked to her about their experience with their bio dad sperm donor, and she's like, it is just unconscionable to me that like men go around making deposits and like don't really
They don't care.
She's like, all you wanted from me was a medical history, and that's like, that is your right. Like she's really, she's team DCP.
I love that.
Yeah, she's really awesome.
There's a donor conceived person that I talked to, and like speaking of deposit, literally, their donor, this was believe this was in the 80s, and he, they were like, come in, donate as much as you want. And they said, even if our bank is closed, because this was a bank, they were like, just deposit into a Ziploc bag and put it through the mail chute, and we'll collect it.
Ew! Wait. What?
I know.
I'm
Was it
upset.
just like a Ziploc baggie? No label, no name, just boop.
I mean, I'm sure it had like a label on it.
I'm
sure,
upset.
I
That's
don't know.
disgusting.
But I'm
I
sure
don't
it
know,
did. No,
dude.
it had to have like a label on it. Like,
Did
hey,
it?
it was from, it
Number
was from
blah
John
blah
Doe,
blah. Yeah. John Doe number 1 2 3 4.
John Doe, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was sitting there scientifically. I was like, but the sperm can only last for so long.
Yeah, I was gonna
how does it even work?
Isn't the sperm
But-
gonna die because
but
it's
isn't-
cold?
I mean, I'm sure there's a reason you don't hear about that anymore, because they were like, that's not an
Doesn't
effective
really work. Yeah.
method.
That's really
But
ineffective.
apparently in this bank in the 80s did allow donors to do that.
Ew.
And I'm just like, ew.
Every time we talk, Laura, you blow my mind. I don't like
I know
that.
I really
I love you,
it's-
but like
I
the
am
information
so
is
much
not.
fun at dinner parties.
Well, that's-
okay?
You're
So
coming
that's-
to the dinner party.
It's so that's what I said is like last year. So I was like one of those kids who was like an aspiring manic pixie dream girl. Like I wanted to be cool and like
Totally
fun
get
and
it.
carefree and quirky.
We were in that's
Yeah.
the early 2000s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I
It's
wanted to
Zoe
be
Deschanel.
Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah.
like the
Yes.
prototypical manic pixie dream girl, 500 Days of Summer. And I was like, I want to be unique. I want to be quirky. And then last year, I finally had the story that nobody could get enough of. Everybody
Yes.
wanted to hear it. I had a couple of friends that were like live along this journey with me, where I was like updating them about what I was doing and like how it was going. And they were like, we are rabid for the next chapter.
I know.
And I had to remind them, and like, again, shout out to my therapist, Susan, who constantly reminds me, she's like, for everybody else, it's a fun party story, but this is like your life. It's your lived experience. And I was always really kind of careful with how and when I shared it. And so like when you guys were like, oh, we should do the podcast, I was like, ooh, I love the opportunity to like get to go on it like as a spectrum of donor conceived people and like talk about a story that like was none of this that happened was easy for everyone involved.
No, not at all.
And everybody who was peripherally involved, everybody who was directly involved, like it made a big impact on all of our lives, and
it built our bodies.
It literally built our bodies.
I constantly, because I get I get comments going like, well, actually, how much did the donor conception really affect you? Like, how much does it actually?
It's
affect
literally
you?
in every cell of my body.
It is a
literally
daily thing. Every single cell in my body is affected by this.
Like,
it's every cell. It's every cell in my body, and it's like when I look in the mirror, like what.
Yeah, when I look in the mirror, I go, who am I?
I mentioned this on a different episode that I think will actually probably come out after this one. But I say like when it comes to like dinner parties, I actually, or like parties in general, I try very hard not to actually ever bring up donor conception because once you get me going.
No, I'm the same way.
And also, I take over, but then also people are just like, oh, because either one or two things happens. I take over. Or people are just like, oh, tell us more. And I'm just like, you don't want me to? You don't want me to?
You're going to be sad.
You're going to be sad.
This is going to be Bummer Town.
And
again.
Fun dinner party.
For anybody who talks to me when I'm not on TikTok, when I'm not on Instagram, when I'm not on the podcast, would I share privately when I know I'm not getting fucking recorded? I share way more because I'm like because I always say the worst fucking stories, the worst ones I've never told publicly yet because those are in works for other things right now. Yeah. Or there are things that are just like, no, I can't do that. And so like the shit that I will share at like a fucking party when people, because of course people know me as like, because I'm a little on the aggressive side. I don't know.
Love
what?
you. What?
I don't know. I'm a little on the aggressive side, and I will say I can get very intense in real life, and I think that's I can get very intense, which I fully admit to. Part of this is just because of a subject I care about, but like when I start in real life and I get those same comments of like, yeah, but like, how much does this really impact you? And you say that to me in real life.
I'm not going to hold my face for that. Like, I have no poker face.
I'm like, I can edit myself. I'm like, you're now getting unfiltered, raw, uncut, unedited, Laura, which is way fucking worse. And I try and be really nice about it, but if you push me too far and then I start going, oh, let me fucking tell you what has happened to my community. And I will traumatize you with the stories that I have never shared. And I will be like, no, we're going to go how fucking deep it is. Look into my eyes. I have been changed by this shit fucking forever. I'm like, and eye contact hurts me. I'll fucking
I'm gonna nail into you.
I'm gonna nail into you, and you are gonna care about this, and you're gonna realize how fucked up this is. And we're gonna do this now. You're gonna go on this journey with me, and I promise you will be changed.
I mean, no one realizes it unless you're within the community.
It's so true. Yeah. And I told this story publicly, like to a group that was like beyond just a dinner party setting for the first time to my coworkers because we have these like little passion share things, and I was like, I think I want to tell my story, and I ended it with, and I actually texted Rachel and I was like, how should I, like, what's my angle here? And
because there's so many angles you could do.
Right, exactly. Besides the fact that this is like objectively an interesting story. I was just like, why should you care? And I said, I think that unless you know somebody who is impacted by this, it might not be an issue that's top of mind. And I would say that most people that I talk to like really don't understand that there are no regulations almost whatsoever.
That's the most shocking part, I think.
It is pretty shocking. And I'm like, why don't we regulate?
The fertility fraud always shocks people. So the lack of fertility fraud legislation.
Yep.
How I always kind of talk about it with people who are like, okay, but like, why should I care? I always say, one, it's going to affect somebody you know. The amount of people who use the fertility industry is an incredibly high number. You just may not realize it. An incredibly high number of people do this. You also know someone who's donor conceived. They just haven't told you, or they don't know, or they don't know themselves. You absolutely know somebody. And On top of which, this absolutely affects you. I'm like, one, the fact that they're making sibling pods of 100 plus affects the genetic diversity. They're allowing all these kids to get sick,
Die.
Not
to get super dark, but
not to get super dark, but yeah, kids have fucking died.
Yep.
Adults have died. This absolutely affects the health and the wellness of our society, of your town, of your city. And I'm like, maybe you yourself are not donor conceived. Maybe you're not a donor. Your brother might be a donor, and he may have never told you. And now his kids and your kids are at the same fucking school, and they're genetic mirroring with each other and have no idea what's going on, and they're taking that as a romantic thing, and now they're fucking hooking up. So it's like, believe me, donor conception, the lack of regulations, absolutely, the chances of it affecting you are very, very real.
It's a ripple effect.
I literally got a message from somebody yesterday, and I appreciated this message wholeheartly, but a newer case of fertility fraud that has recently come out, they were like, holy shit, I used to work with this person. Oh my God, I'm shaking right now. I can't believe this. And I so feel bad for them. I feel so badly that like that's something that they have to sort of sit with. And it's like, no, this shit, it's going to creep up on you. It will affect you in some way or another. It absolutely will.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just something that unless it's brought to your attention, like why would you have thought about it? Like I don't fault anybody who's not thinking about it, but ultimately, I think it's an important issue, and I like to think that hopefully the way that I tell my story and the way that the story has played out just like really is just a nice like entree into the, I think it's sometimes
the dinner party of life.
Like and it's sometimes easier to hear a story that while there is trauma and like there a lot of things were really hard, it does sometimes it feel like I have so many moments where I'm like, I cannot believe that this is how this turned out. Like I just
in
feel
a good way
in
or
a
no?
great way. No, in an abundantly grateful way. And sometimes I think it is easier to hear that story as a compliment to just like all of the really tough ones, because like sometimes we just need a DCP palate cleanser and like
thanks
so that we like all have the spoons to deal with the rest of it. And so I'm like, great, if I can provide that for some folks, like that's amazing. And I'm very grateful to everybody who was, a main character, or featured player, a non-playable character in this story. Like, truly. And the other, so just as like a little button, the other thing that I didn't get to tell you guys.
Because we definitely need to, this is now already a 2-part episode.
Oh, yeah. You're going to have to
2 parts. We definitely have to, and I actually have to leave for a show.
That's okay. I was supposed to go anyways.
Yes. All right. Yeah. We have to. So yes. Let us button it up.
We can keep
Final
talking
thoughts.
for another 3 hours.
I know, right? We really could.
We really could. But like, let's button it up.
Yeah.
Let's.
So
for Rachel, we're gonna put a nice bow on it.
Well,
Thanks.
so as
we're gonna put a bow. You get to put a bow on this one.
Great. I get a bow.
You get a bow. We get to put this on the shelf. Okay.
Excellent.
This one we get to do this.
Thank you.
I feel
You're
like
welcome. That's a very nice
firm handshake.
I'm lefty. That's the funny part. You got my non-dumb hand. Anyway.
I feel like the next evolution for me was that somebody reached out to me, and we started talking because they were like doing research for their PhD. They are donor conceived, and they wanted to interview donor conceived people. And so they are not from the U.S. They're from a small country, small Scandinavian country, and they were traveling to the U.S. We did an interview. We became friendly, and I was like, would you ever want me to try to find your biological dad for you? And they were like, yeah, actually. And so like we went out to dinner one night, we got like, a couple of beveraginos, and I was like, all right, tonight's the night, we're doing it. And I went back to this person's house, and they were like, I logged into like my heritage and ancestry, and ultimately like I found their biological dad. And it was like such an experience for me to be like accompanying that person in that moment, and like to know exactly kind of how that felt when I did it for myself, and then to like and it felt like such an interesting evolution, and it was so intense.
That's amazing.
And I was like, so I was, it felt good to be able to help another person, and like if me telling my story gives like one person the courage to take the step to do a DNA test, to confront their parents, to have a hard conversation with a parent, to dare to want a relationship with their genetic parent, to reach out to their genetic parent, like all of these things, like if hearing that like it can work out if you like dare to dream a little bit, like if that helps one person, I'll be really happy that I told this story.
I think also a lot of it is just giving permission.
Giving yourself permission to want something that you were afraid to want, because I really think that I a year ago couldn't have imagined how well things would have turned out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Are there Rachel, any final thoughts?
No, and I'm just sad now.
I tried to end on a happy
note. I
note.
like you ending on a happy note, but I'm also like, I'm more sad because I realized that we are leaving soon, and that means we can't hang out today because I know you're going home.
I know. We live across the country from each other, but it is nice. I do come back a lot.
Yeah,
so.
I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, no, that's it. Just like, I like hearing your story because I feel like it's a nice, like, I know like you said it's a main course. For me, it's like a nice side.
Exactly.
Like the mac and cheese to my roast chicken.
Yeah, tasty side.
Tasty
very
side.
Tasty, very comforting.
Tasty side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good side dish.
Good side dish. The mac and cheese.
The mac and cheese.
What am I?
Candied yams.
Okay. That's a good side dish, right?
I've never had it, but I like it in theory. I can say you're stuffing. But that's like bread, and that's mean.
Why does that mean?
I don't know.
Wait, what? Yeah, like how would you characterize like? Yeah, hearing Laura's. I don't know. I feel like
know.
I was gonna say like you're kind of like a salad or something, but like no one's.
That's me.
Well, yeah, because it's like
It's kind of nutty.
yeah.
So it's,
Ooh, yeah, like a cranberry walnut salad.
Like a harosette.
yeah.
harosette. That's it. You're harosette.
My story.
We're a Passover now.
My story is funny. It's not comforting.
Then
Right.
you're definitely a Passover side.
Welcome to the tribe.
Well, because I think I told you all I was conceived on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know
yeah.
your story.
Yeah, no, it's. Is there a traditional Rosh Hashanah dish?
Apples and honey.
Apples and honey, yeah. And like round
You just do
challah.
honey. Yeah, challah, apples, honey. You want to have a
Okay.
sweet New Year.
Simmis.
Simus. Yeah.
Okay.
You can be Simus.
I'll be Simus.
Yeah.
Do you know even how to spell it?
No.
I mean, to be fair, it's a Yiddish word, so
I
like, it's
can't
really
spell
spelled.
it either.
Well,
Sorry, Dad.
We'll give you the
We'll
the
give you
lowdown.
Yiddishism later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you both for coming on. This was amazing. This is
Yeah.
obviously going to be 2 parts.
Sorry we talk for so long.
No, but I think this is also what happens when donor conceived people get together is like we just there's a lot of like, yes, oh my god, yeah. I think there is a lot of that when we do, which is why again it is so important that we do find community, and I hope that donor conceived people who do listen to this podcast, I hope this was, even though we can't physically hear you, I hope this felt like you're chatting with some friends. Because
Yeah.
I know for me, like I met Alex
On Tuesday.
and it was an instant like, okay, yeah. And it was an instant like, I don't want to like totally overspeak, but it was like just an instant connection, instant friendship.
I was like a girl that gets it. Yeah.
Girl that gets it. And that has also been my experience with other donor conceived people. As soon as I've met them, it's
We're
like,
like, yep.
it's an instant bond, instant shorthand. And
It's a club that we never asked to be a part of, but we're in it. Yeah, we really didn't, but we're all in it, and we're
Lifetime
happy.
membership.
Are we happy to be here? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But like, it's good to. It's just so comforting to not be alone.
Yeah.
It really is. And I do encourage donor conceived people. I'm like, I want to respect whatever journey you're on, but even if like, you're not interested in finding your donor, you don't want to take a DNA test, like whatever it is, I really encourage you though, find community.
Yep.
Because even though you may think I'm totally like, I've settled all of my emotions with it, just go talk just a little bit. Just go.
Nothing will hurt.
And nothing will hurt, just in case, because I certainly thought I did. And then once I found my community, ooh, did it open up a box that I thought was also very nicely little sealed with a bow.
I didn't think there was a community.
No.
At all. You know,
Me
when I was
neither.
a kid, I didn't know we existed. I was like, I'm alone. Blah, blah, blah.
I've gotten that comment where I'm just like, hey, do you need community? And the donor conceived person will write back going,
What
like,
community?
What community?
Yeah.
And I'm like, There's a lot.
Yeah.
Like we're fucking weird, but
Surprise!
we're great. Surprise! So I hope
The elder council over here.
the elder counselor. So I hope for the donor conceived people who are hearing this, please know that like when we had this, like I imagine you all here as well, and I look forward to when I get to meet you and we can have these conversations, and just know that we want to find you. We want to find community. I love talking to donor conceived people. I love it.
Yeah.
And hearing all of our unique stories and all of our, oh my God, Me Too's. Me Too's in a good way.
Yeah. Like,
Same here.
same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
And like, I'll say for me, like my DMs are always open if people want. Like I'm very, very happy to share kind of the letter that I wrote.
Yeah.
Our
It's a
genetic
really good
parent.
letter too.
Thank
We
you.
worked. No, that was a we. That wasn't a you.
Yeah, I know. It is a really good letter, but
We went back and forth on that
Yeah.
because we're like, we needed to sound specific. We didn't want to like seem pushy. We didn't want to like
super
I
specific.
totally get that.
Yeah, so like, and then there are a lot of like once you get tapped in, there are a lot of resources that
We have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
We really do. I mean, I would say they're not the easiest to find if you don't know where to look.
Yeah.
Because we are still such a new community. So that is why, like, if you find a donor conceived advocate, or anybody who is, I would say, publicly talking about their donor conception story, we will all point you into like kind of the same directions depending on what you need.
we all know each other.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Small
We're a small community.
We are a
We all
very-
know each other.
Oh yeah, all of the advocates, anyone who's in the
Yeah.
public space, like we all fucking know each other.
Yeah.
Like we all know
There's
who's talking
dozens
to
of
who.
us. Dozens.
Yeah, there's dozens.
Arrested Development pins.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah.
We know. Like
Yeah.
it's all. I mean, and I speak to the advocates
Yeah.
every fucking day.
Yup.
Every day do I speak to one of the advocates at least. I'm going like, hey, have you heard of this person? Do you know what this person is? Who's sponsoring this bill? Who's doing this? And
Yeah.
it's like we all know. So just for the community,
Yeah.
understand you have community.
We're here.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're fucking here.
And we're not going anywhere. So like if you're not at the point in your journey where you're ready to access the
No. We'll
community,
still be here.
We'll still be
We'll
here.
still be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also really common as well, because some people need like some time to sit with it for a while. And
Nothing
that's
wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. You do
Yeah.
that when you are ready.
Yeah.
But just know that your community is very, very ready to fiercely hear you and see you.
And we'll fight.
And we will fight. We will
Yeah.
fight for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're fighters. We're very stubborn.
We're very scrappy.
We are scrappy.
We're very scrappy and hungry.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So
let's leave on that.
let's do that. All right. Thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to, if you want to connect, is there a place where you would like people to find you all?
Do you want to plug social?
Is there anything for you all to plug, or is there nothing
Because
for
your
you to
social
plug?
has your name.
Yeah, my social does have
And
my
we're
name
not
in
doing
it.
that.
I mean, you can. I mean, if this is like if you're putting a clip of this on TikTok, you can tag me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then where okay, so where can people find you?
I mean, I already plugged my socials last time, but I'm just rshifty on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, but no one uses Twitter.
Yep. And I refuse to call it X. It's Twitter.
No one will call it X. That is bull.
No, it's fucking Twitter.
Yeah,
I have
Twitter
to actually,
forever.
wait, I have to look up. I don't actually know where my. Oh, I think my.
Do you
my
not know your own username?
I don't know my. I think my TikTok username is Ali or Alex, like ALI or ALEX.
It's I should know it because I message you all the time. It's Allie or whatever.
Yeah, it's you're right. No, my TikTok ad does have my name in it, but you can tag me in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll
But-
be tagged in this.
All right, sounds good. And amazing.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. Okay.
Great.
Well, amazing. Good job, team.
Great. Break.
Break.
Go team.
Go team.